Seatbelt, can you fix it? There you go. Cool. Welcome back to Memes and Markets. Keith, how are you, man?
Today's the best day of my life, Ben. How you living?
Today is fantastic, man. We've got an awesome guest with us in the house that we're going to talk some XRP today, man. I'm amped for it. So, Keith, I'll throw it back to you and let you intro our awesome guest here.
We've got Mr. Mickle, XRP Mickle, in the house with us. One of the most followed XRP analysts on YouTube, at the very least. I have down that you've come from surgical robotics and biomedical engineering.
That's badass, man.
And then
Yeah,
started making
no, that's
videos.
where so I majored in engineering, and I was stuck between going the medical route to go like into a doctor or something like that, in between engineering. So I figured I'd just split the difference and do surgical robotics. I realized pretty quickly that as much as I have so much respect for people who work in these like ICUs and stuff, I was like, look, it's just like I can't do it. Like it skeeved me out. And then very quickly after, you know, when you work in a large corporation, you see some of the issues associated with moving money, and the whole crypto thing just made a ton of sense to me. So I eventually pivoted full time into the cryptocurrency industry because I believe this is going to be one of the most important and fastest growing industries far into the future.
Talk to us a little bit about the journey into crypto. Like, was it immediately XRP, or how did you make your way to XRP?
Yeah, so funny. This is actually a funny story. So, the first time I really heard about it was in 2016. A lot of people that I knew were using Bitcoin, and they were just using it for like sports betting and gambling and stuff like that. And there was like this huge craze and everyone was talking about it, and then it crashed back down, and I had already been into markets, so I'd already been investing in Tesla and Nvidia and a lot of different tech companies that I found interesting. And I was like definitely not a believer in Bitcoin. But then it crashed back down, and I noticed it was holding this like really sturdy base at like 3 or 4 thousand, and I was like, you know, like now that everyone I know who is using this for like gambling and stuff is now like on it's a scam and it's going away, I was like, it's clearly not going to zero. Like it's holding this very high level of value. So I did some research on it, instantly became extremely interested in like what Bitcoin was doing. Then went down the rabbit hole into a couple other things, started to learn about Ethereum, but I kept on running into this thing where it's like, okay, this stuff is really cool, but it doesn't feel to me like it's really like has enough oomph to really be like incorporated into the financial system. Like it doesn't seem like there's enough there for like the real usage. Like Ethereum, it's just always got stuck up on how expensive it was. Bitcoin seemed a little too slow. So they were very interesting and I was an investor, but I didn't feel like I found that thing was like the mass market application. Fast forward like a year or two, I was still just small part of my portfolio. And funny enough, my dad was like kind of getting into it as well. And he was like just scrolling through Coin Market Cap, and he's like, "What's this XRP thing?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know. A lot of people say it's a scam and not to pay attention to it. But let me dig into it a little bit." And then I started digging into it, and I was like, "Wait, this is like the first corporate real financial use case for a digital asset that I think could actually scale and become something extremely significant in terms of what crypto is looking to do." So that was really the point where I really started doing a lot of research on XRP, and then really just became super interested in sort of the build out, the adoption, the use case, how it's being incorporated into things, and by far and away became the thing that I was most bullish on into the future.
So yeah, M Green just said, "Hey, Mickle, you held your own on that debate video too. The 2v1 was crazy. Where was that at? What was that?"
Yeah, so like I find that like a lot of people in crypto are just, I don't know, they come from a different mentality than I believe a lot of people in the typical investing space. So it's just, I like to kind of give counter arguments and go back and forth with people who are like super bullish on crypto, but for some reason have this like deep, weird hatred for XRP. It's one of the things like I never really understood, because if you go to like what the original use case, what crypto was initially designed for per Satoshi's white paper, it was being able to move and settle value near instantaneously. Like that is like a huge revolution in the way money moves and works today. And now you have like all these other things that people are trying to do with crypto, and many of which are very interesting, but they just seem so outside of what that killer application for this technology can really be. So, um, a lot of the times these people will want to talk about it or hear the other side. And I love engaging with these debates because it makes everyone smarter, allows people to hear both sides of the argument. Like I always tell people, like I don't go on these debates to convince the people I'm debating to suddenly be bullish on XRP. But if people can come in and hear both sides of it and say, oh, well, I understand this counter argument, but I like what Mickle had to say here, or I didn't like what Mickle liked to say here, but I like this counter argument, it makes everyone so much smarter. So I like to go on a lot of shows, debate people, and not just stay within an echo chamber, right? Talk with people with different views, because I feel like at the end of the day, that's how the audience gets smarter.
I love that, man. That's what we try to do here too as well. I think that's the only, like, otherwise, why are you talking, right? Like, I don't get why people just say the same thing over and over again, but it's just, I think algorithmically, it's pushed people to become more or less like bot-like, where they wanna either yell at the thing they don't like or be confirmed that what they like is correct. And if it's anything but that, there's a visceral reaction. But, Keith, what you got next?
No, and I always judge people's intelligence by like how much can they just sit down and hear both sides of it. I mean, when I first got into Tesla, I think in 2016, 2017-ish, it was like everyone thought they were going bankrupt, that Elon was a fraud, like all these different things. And then it was like, wait, like there's this whole other side of like the community that's like extremely bullish on what they're doing. And like just not going into things closed-minded and willing to listen to both sides and form my own opinion has made me far more money than ever like figuring out something or discovering something. Because like a lot of the stuff that's out there's so much access to information. Like it's more about just listening to all the different points of view, cementing yourself in a place where you feel like you can sort of develop your own ideas, but understanding what all those trade-offs are. So, um, like I said, the vast majority of money I've made through investing is really just by listening to both sides, never judging a book by its cover, and then just listening to what smart people in each community have to say and weighing that against what the bears have to say. And I have to say, like, it's for a long time and for a lot of the investments I've made, it's just been extremely obvious. Like I've kind of listened to both sides of it, see which one has a stronger argument. And the vast majority of the times from there, there's a lot of material I can work with to go make my own decision.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's so I've kind of gone from full XRP person to like more Bitcoin person literally over the past few months, but I've been in this since 2017. And it was when I saw XRP, I saw Bitcoin and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, but I only heard about it because of Ethereum. I mean, I only started to actually look into Bitcoin because of Ethereum. I was like, oh, okay, like there's actually something happening here. Like from a topological perspective, there's not just Bitcoin as a thing to use money, whatever. There's like there's a class of things that exist now. And so I was like, okay, so then let me understand what Bitcoin is. And then I was like, okay, well, if this is going to happen, this is going to completely mess everything up. But like the structures that are in place will have responses to something that's that powerful, right? And so when I saw XRP, which didn't take long, this was something that I was so confused by. I'm like, it's the third largest cryptocurrency by market cap. Like, how do you keep ignoring it and not trying to understand it to some degree? And I was like, oh, well, then this is probably that solution. This is that answer to if Bitcoin is going to take over and rewire the global financial system, then like this is probably the system's response to it. At least that's how it's being branded, right?
No,
And yeah,
I
go ahead.
totally agree with that perspective. In fact, I've always been uh massively bullish on Bitcoin over the long run. I mean, I think I just look at them and categorize them slightly differently. Like I think Bitcoin has really solidifies itself as being like, and I don't want this to come across at all as negative, but like a pristine collectible in a very similar way to what gold has become. Um I just feel like for me, it's always been it hasn't necessarily answered the question for me of like financial infrastructure. And that's where I think XRP has a better or different road carved out for it than something like Bitcoin. But I don't think that detracts in any way from Bitcoin in its own right. So that's one of those things I know a lot of people debate back and forth, but if Bitcoin's one day $1 million, which I think it one day will, I think XRP is going to have an astronomically higher price. And when XRP has an astronomically higher price, I think Bitcoin will as well. Like, I just think in the same exact way as like in the internet era, there were multiple companies all solving different problems that all had their own value proposition to the world. Like, I feel like it's going to be very similar with a lot of these cryptocurrency networks.
Yeah, I think a lot of the infighting occurs because a lot of people think that it's like this or that. When I think at least over the short term, it's probably and, right? So it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out. But for you to attach yourself so strongly to one asset, what is your like bull thesis there where you're literally making your name like XRP Mickle? That's a big stamp of approval. So like what led you to have that kind of conviction?
I would actually say it's sort of multi-part. So like for me, the real reason, like I said earlier, for XRP was just because it was the first thing that it filled a really important part of my portfolio, right? Like I was investing in a lot of these different tech companies that all had like really, really powerful innovations they were bringing to the world. But the one thing that like no one was really fixing that I thought was so outdated was like financial infrastructure. And there was like kind of one of those things I was like, okay, well, like Uber's completely transforming transportation. Like Tesla's doing this stuff to ride hailing. Then you have players like Palantir, like bringing AI to the world. And it's like, how can I still not move money on a weekend? Or like, why do I have to worry about like a bank holiday? Or like, why is this taking 3 to 4 days? And it's like, there's this, it's just so outdated and so broken. For me, it was like to fill that part of my portfolio, right? It's like, I wanted something that directly impacted like financial architecture. So I started doing a lot of content on XRP. And what I noticed was like there was a huge group of people who were also very interested with that type of content. Like a lot of people wanted to hear it. So from my own content perspective, I started focusing a lot on XRP because it was such an engaging and it still is such an engaging place to be able to build content in. And I just always was super attracted to that ecosystem in particular. It just made a lot of sense for me to like sort of focus on that and give that my time and attention because a lot of these other ecosystems they sort of already have someone sort of at the top or they already have a very established community. I saw a really interesting place to be able to help build that in the XRP ecosystem and a place I really believed in. And I don't know, it just always was kind of one of those things that came a lot more natural than me even like really trying to pursue it one way or the other.
I think one of the things, so I want to talk about Bitcoin maximalism for a second, because I think that one of the biggest things that the Bitcoin maximalist has against the concept of really anything that's not Bitcoin is, so you mentioned at the beginning, Mikkel, like this idea that Bitcoin doesn't answer the question of like integration into the financial system and improving the financial system basically as it stands, right? Like it makes it slower, it's more clunky, it's more expensive as it currently stands. But a lot of, and this is a problem with Bitcoin, I think in general, is like, okay, but what is this for? Right? Is it for sending money? Is it for permissionless sending of money? And I think that becomes the argument that a Bitcoin maximalist is going to make is that there is no alternative to having a system that cannot actually be stopped by some other party. So how do you respond to that piece? Like, how do you look at that in this equation?
Well, I go back to, and it's a great question. I go back to kind of like what my core belief of what the future is going to look like. Like up until very, very recently, right? Like the whole idea of a lot of the Bitcoin maximalist had to do with hyper Bitcoinization, in which there's going to be like a replacement of fiat currency with Bitcoin. And like the United States Federal Reserve was going to like fold over and everyone's going to be transacting in Bitcoin. And like, I just always viewed those things as like hyper unrealistic, right? Like it just never seemed to me like that was at all the direction that we were going. And like back in 2014, Chris Larson did a demonstration of the XRP Ledger. And the first thing that he was showing off was the XRP Ledger having tokenized fiat dollars in it, right? Like JPY, USD. And this idea that like what's the change that's happening isn't a revolution necessarily in like economic structure, right? Like the Federal Reserve is still going to be printing money, the Treasury is still going to be issuing money. Like I didn't see those things changing within the next 30 years. Like maybe something happens way down the line, but personally, I don't think we're that close to it like a lot of the Bitcoin maximalists thought. And because of that, it always made sense to me that like as we continue to see, every single part of human society is going to be digitized in some way or another. And like, then I just had to really think between two outcomes, right? Are like governments going to fold over and say, hey, we're going to completely blow up the entire economy and just destroy our ability to print money and like the entire fabric of how human society works? Or are we just going to like upgrade our systems to be faster, more efficient, and utilize new technology? And for me, it's like, that's why they don't detract one way or the other. Like Bitcoin just, I don't think has the capacity in order to cause that change to happen. I believe it's going to be a pristine store of value, a great opt out of the system. But I totally disagree with the mentality that that means that the traditional system is going to fail. In fact, I think the traditional system is just going to be incorporated into a lot of these digital systems that are going to be built. And that's exactly where I think XRP plays a very important role.
And let's be real for a second. Do you think that in that world that you're describing, that XRP ends up being more valuable than Bitcoin?
You know, that's probably one of the hardest questions to answer. So I think it really plays out like this. In my maximum like bullish thesis for XRP, if XRP can really fill the role of being this extremely neutral, decentralized liquidity source, and we really see it as the de facto institutional chain for all kinds of finance, right? If that's just where people go in order to conduct transactions, trades, and it's just the most liquid marketplace for this type of activity, I do think there is a world where XRP goes past Bitcoin in terms of market capitalization. But in a world where cryptocurrency stays a bit more niche and like it's not the revolution that I think a lot of people thought, I still think Bitcoin and XRP appreciate a lot in value over the long run. But in the world where it's just the collectible value and not so much of the utility value and not so much of like a complete transformation to the fabric of the financial system, then I think Bitcoin probably has a slight advantage in just being the first collectible, right? Like the first thing ever issued. You see this in every single time of collectible markets, like even Pokemon cards. Like you have this Pokemon card that's super valuable, but then they find like a new one that was actually the first issuance, and now like that's the most valuable. So like humans have this idea that like the oldest, most original, most unique thing stores a lot of value to it. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think that's just the way history and humans work. But I do think there's a like potential that if these systems elevate into more than that, then the utility and use case that XRP can bring as a neutral, decentralized liquidity source plugged into all this money can give it a value proposition that could usurp just that store of value in collectible market.
Did you just call Bitcoin a collectible?
I do think Bitcoin is going down the road of being a collectible. And it's store of value collectible. I look at them in a similar way, sort of. Um, just because the main function in which humans are collecting them is really because it's something rare. It's something that has a low chance of being debased. It's something that people are storing value in simply as a different form to hedge against debasement. So that's generally how I define that. Now, like I say, I think collectible is too much of like a slight at what Bitcoin is. But I don't know if there's like a great word to really describe like where humans put that, because like there's like, let's face it, there's collectibles that if you held over a period of time were probably the best performing assets to ever exist. It sounds like a silly word that people throw around. What I'm really pointing at is I don't think Bitcoin has this same level of symmetry with where the world is going in terms of financial architecture that XRP has, that I think opens up another use case for XRP.
Totally fair. Yeah, I think the collectible word is triggering to people, but if you actually break down like what it is that you're saying, I don't think it's that offensive because like what thing isn't a collectible, right? If you really break it down. But so you mentioned the fact that you don't align with the Bitcoin maxi thesis where this could be like the base layer of finance, Bitcoin could be. And why do you think that is the case? Like, why is that impossible in your mind?
So well, funny, two reasons. One, I think it's like kind of antithetical to how humans have interacted their like entire life. Like, take a look at like gold, for example. Like, the idea that you want to store value, but then you also want to spend your stored value, like those two things like don't make sense. Like, if the whole idea is like store all your wealth in Bitcoin, then why would I be spending my Bitcoin? Like, I want to spend my fiat. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. The other part that does never made any sense to me is like humans don't want that. Like your average person, like you can't even really get them to like download Robinhood and play around with stocks. Do we really envision a world where people are going to the store and purchasing things with Bitcoin? Like the volatility is just doesn't make sense for like human society. I just don't think people will ever really be able to adapt to that or understand it. And then the last piece is like I don't think you can have Bitcoin fit into that role unless the entire monetary system completely collapses and fails, and like we have to start from the ground up, because like the entire function of how our monetary system works has to do with the printing of fiat dollars, and like it's just one of those things that is a house of cards that I don't think anyone's going to just take down to the ground unless it falls apart on its own. Um, I do think a lot of like the big argument is like these financial systems are unsustainable. They break down every 100 years. Like we're bound to have that happen. But like, there's no signs in the current economy that we're like anywhere close to any of that happening. And even if it did happen, I still think you would need like an absolute revolution and overthrow of a government in order to get away from the idea of there being a fiat currency. And I don't even think most people want a world where there's not a fiat currency. So I understand the perspective of like that's what the Bitcoin maximalists want. I guess I look at it as like the Bitcoin maximalists are a very niche portion of the world and society today. And I think through time and history, his society has essentially dictated that those aren't the things they want. Um, so I just continue to see a world where people aren't going to want to spend their Bitcoin. They're not going to want to use it as a currency. They're going to want to use it as a store of value to essentially get out of government debasement. But I'm not sure how you pursue those things at the same time. The whole reason we got off the gold standard was to make it so people can store their value in gold, and that can be a hedge against the system in a way. And then they can run an inflationary monetary policy that encourages spending and liquidity. And like, unless you're talking about the entire destruction of Keynesian economics and the way the entire financial system is architectured, it's just really hard for me to see any of that stuff changing in the near future. But then if you have a system like what Ripple has with XRP, it's like, wait, we can just make that system in the digital age. We can just recreate what you're already doing. We're not going to tell you to change monetary policy. We're not going to tell you to reconstruct the way the entire financial system works, but we can make it better, faster, and cheaper and unlock capabilities you couldn't before. Like that argument has always resonated with me a lot stronger.
I think everything you said there is totally fair. But one thing I would ask is, do you think that's what people have said that they want, or do they even know that there's a potential alternative?
That's a really good question. So like I would put it like this. I can say, like, for myself, it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin, right? Like, plug in any asset that I'm purchasing with fiat because I'm bullish on it. Um, I don't want to spend those assets. Like, I don't know what to tell people. Like that's not what I want to do. And I also
But
don't want to be in a situation where I'm saving up for something and I want to go purchase something, and then suddenly the price of that asset is cut in half or 20%. Like, it's like I can say a matter of factly, like, those are two very different pieces of financial utility for me. Like, do I want to go even Bitcoin right now? Do I want to go spend my Bitcoin to go get, like, I don't know, like my driveway fixed? Like, absolutely not. Like, and I certainly don't want to do it in the middle of a bear market. Like, it just doesn't really work that well for that. And I don't think anyone can seriously say with a straight face that, like, that's the world that they think would be better for the vast majority of society. I
but
think in certain places it's better than a hyperinflationary fiat currency. But that's more of a government and fiat problem than it is necessarily like there's a good solid currency there. So if there's a good solid currency and it works really well, I mean, I'm never going to choose a world where I can't use that. Like, that's a huge piece of utility in my daily life. And I just think this idea, it is more of an education problem, right? Like, more people should know about the option to be able to take some of their fiat or a large majority of it and then go invest it. But am I going to tell any single person, like, hey, don't hold any fiat? You don't know any liquidity. You have to go deal with a hyper volatile asset that's going to go up and down and change constantly. Like, I don't think that's really the world that a lot of people want.
but isn't that a lot of that mentality because the monetary system or, like, monetary units is constantly being inflated? Like, if you could store your value in money, wouldn't that change the ideology that you approach, like, all the things we're discussing with?
So it's a great point, right? And it just comes from me thinking that there's so many different economic tools out there, right? There's treasuries, there's dollars, there's bonds, there's stocks, there's equities, there's now crypto. Like, the idea that any single one of those things can be all those things at once, it like doesn't make sense, because structurally the inherent properties that you want with one thing are fundamentally different from another. Like, if people are storing their value long term in fiat, like, in my opinion, that's just a misuse of what fiat is for. Fiat is for short-term liquidity and spending. Like, I don't necessarily see Bitcoin as a solution to those things, right? Like, I see Bitcoin as a much better solution to long-term debasement and opt out of the system and long-term value appreciation. But those might not be things that I really care about for, like, a short-term liquidity tool. So, like, those are the kinds of things, like, I'm up against. Like, I just can't even see a world where people, like, just move off of a fiat standard or there's no more fiat. Like, even if you take the position that, like, a lot more people should be storing their value in Bitcoin, right? That's absolutely true. But, like, can it be a transactional sort of vehicle in the same way money is today in fiat? Like, I would argue that's a worse outcome for a lot of people. And I certainly wouldn't opt into it, even though I choose to store a lot of my value in Bitcoin. Like, when I get a paycheck, I'm not taking that paycheck, buying Bitcoin, and then selling that Bitcoin, taking that money and go purchasing something. Like, I'd rather just have a little cash pile that I know, regardless of what Bitcoin does over the next 4 months, I have the liquidity and the monetary transaction power that I'm going to need to go live my life. And then if I have some on the side after, then I'll throw it in the long-term store of value and appreciation bucket and it can go up.
So my next piece is like, so when we talk about, okay, Bitcoin doesn't work as like the currency of the future because it's volatile, but like so is XRP. So how do you square that? Because I'll finish with this, because I've realized that you almost have to believe in some sort of a, like, not conspiracy, but a future that's not here today, in order to kind of have the XRP being the final answer as your conclusion.
Yeah, so the big reason I look at things structurally differently, right, was because you have to go back to the purpose at which the XRP ledger was built. That's why I brought up the Chris Larson thing very early on, with the ability and the inherent purpose of the XRP ledger to be a place where governments, corporates, anyone can go issue their own currency. in my total vision, and David Schwartz actually said this when he was asked by Tony from the Thinking Crypto channel, like what's his master plan or grand vision or end state for XRP. And he said something like that totally changed my view on all of this. He said XRP was decentralized neutral liquidity that anyone could contribute to or draw off. And what that means is that XRP, although in some of its very early applications has been used to ping money back and forth just because it's like really fast and good at it, the end state, I believe, is really XRP acting more as liquidity for the XRP ledger system and a bridge asset that is connecting all this different siloed liquidity of all these different issued assets rather than infinite amounts of bilateral pairs connecting each asset to one another. So JPY to Tesla, JPY to milk derivatives, JPY to future derivatives, JPY, and then all those crisscrossing, everything liquid to XRP in one central place. And I don't necessarily see a future. Like, I'm not going to come on here and say, oh, I'm not going to go to the store and buy stuff with my Bitcoin, but I'll go buy it with my XRP. Absolutely not. I see XRP as the hidden liquidity that sits in the background that the vast majority of people don't know exists. They use the same credit card, the same debit card, the same bank they already use. But on the back end, when it comes to the FX, when it comes to the transfers of value, when it comes to the prime brokerages that are taking out collateral and moving that collateral around to be able to create returns on the assets that their customers have in their positions, I think that's where XRP can play a very important and strategic role in consolidating liquidity and increasing efficiency.
So the other piece to this is why XRP. One of the biggest things that's also developed recently is Ripple launching their own stablecoin. To a lot of people, that meant the end of XRP. What exactly is the thinking behind why XRP still exists and still is useful when you have stablecoins that kind of could replace that?
Yeah, well, once again, like I just like I really fundamentally push back on it. Like, I don't think Chris Larson was presenting the idea in 2014 of like tokenized dollar denominated units on the XRP ledger for this to not be an exact representation of what he ultimately thought was going to take place one day. Like, the truth is I don't think Ripple is going to be the only person with a stable coin. I think governments are going to have their own stable coins. I think every large corporate financial institution is going to have their stable coins. There's going to be so many different dollar denominated units out there, all with different levels of safety and different rewards or different reasons to use them. But ultimately, none of those things can happen without public decentralized infrastructure, things like the XRP ledger, in which XRP is a systemically important piece of that system. So the XRP ledger can't operate without XRP, and XRP will always be the liquidity of the XRP ledger through a feature called pathfinding. So the truth is RLUSD being issued on the XRP ledger, I believe, just once again proves that XRP really at the end of the day is a pristine liquidity asset on the XRP ledger, and other dollar denominated units are going to fill the payment role. But when all these different dollar denominated units come out, tokenized bonds, tokenized equities, tokenized real estate, and you have this world of tokenized assets, one of the most important things that's going to need to take place is creating liquidity between all of these things. And I believe that's where XRP is going to serve as a very, very important role and tool for the system. So personally, I think XRP has inherent value associated with it because it's absolutely functional and necessary for the health and the facilitation of the XRP ledger, which I believe is being put in a very good place by Ripple right now to be connected to some of the most important piles of money in the entire world.
Why Ripple? So let me another great question we had from Wes. He's a huge XRP guy. He asked Mickle, what do you think about the DTCC announcing they'll work with Stellar starting at the beginning of next year? They haven't announced Ripple yet, but I can see in between the lines, he says. What do you think about that? And also the Canton Network as well.
Yeah, I personally think like it's sooner or later there will be the Ripple or XRP sort of strategy in there as well. But I don't think necessarily one detracts from the other. So if I was going through, right, the top 10 tokens on CoinMarketCap, and I already said, like, right, I have this vision. I really want a cryptocurrency network that I believe has a high degree of likelihood to be incorporated into the traditional financial system. I have to find the counterparts or the players who are doing the best job of taking that and incorporating it. But take a look at some of the stats behind Ripple, right? Through G Treasury, connected to close to 12,000 different financial institutions, through Ripple Prime, clearing close to 6 trillion in assets yearly, through Ripple's just OG payments business. Last update I saw was during the Ripple SEC case, close to 600 financial institutions onboarded. It's not so much to say that there's not another one out there or there won't be another good asset. It's more to say, like, if I'm going to be making a strategic bet in the marketplace, it just seems like where Ripple is positioned is one of the better positioned assets to take advantage of the revolution that's coming. So, um, I don't know. It's not to say that there's not going to be others that do it. It's not even to say there's going to be others that aren't successful. I just think when you take a look at a zoomed out view, a 200-foot view of saying, hey, who's doing a really, really good job of plugging into the traditional financial system? I believe Ripple's doing a really good job of that, and they'll continue to gain momentum with things like Clarity being unlocked.
Do you think the Clarity Act passes this year?
That's a really good question. So like I'm an internal optimist. I've always found that being optimistic is a great way to make a lot of money. A lot of times I feel like people who are very pessimistic and very bearish, they don't nearly do as well as the optimist. I do think it passes this year. I think it's up to every single person who watches me, watches you guys to go and like contact their representatives. John Deaton has a great tool. It's called Connect to Congress. And what it allows you to do is just type in like your zip code and it will automatically connect you to your representative. But midterms are around the corner and there's no anti crypto voter, in my opinion. There's only a pro cryptocurrency voter. Um, so if everyone does their part, right, and we all reach out and contact our local representatives and say, hey, you don't get this done, I'm putting the next guy in office. I think there's going to be a huge push to go get this done as something to stake their reputation on at midterms. Coming out of the last election, the cryptocurrency voter was a huge part in ultimately what happened. And I just think it's really up to all of us. If we really put pressure on these representatives and say, hey, your job is to get this done before midterms, or I'm going to go find someone else who's going to do it, they're going to do it. But if they continue to think, oh, well, there's some people who care about this, there's other people who don't, I can push this off a little bit, it's not a big deal, then it might not matter so much to them. But ultimately, I do think it's going to happen. I think we're going to come back in September and we are going to have that vote that's already scheduled, right? They'll get together, they'll do that. Then maybe a month or two later, they'll get to reconciling it with the House. And then it gets to the president's desk to sign. And I always tell people, like, coming into Trump's term, I always thought like the whole crypto agenda was a little bit more of like, hey, there's a bunch of free voters out there. Let's go get them in. And if you had told me that like we would have a vote scheduled for the Clarity Act within year 2 of Trump's term, like I would have said that's like a fantastic win. Like that's a huge, huge win to already be getting that done. So overall, I actually feel really good about where we are. I think we've made tremendous progress. And I think if we get the vote over the finish line, this is going to end up being one of those things where we kind of all sort of feel like, all right, well, maybe it didn't happen instantaneously like a lot of people wanted, but within 2 years to get a full cryptocurrency clarity bill over the finish line, I think that would go down as a massive win. And I think looking back to where we were with Gary Gensler in the Biden administration, we're light years ahead of where I ever thought we would be. So I'm generally optimistic on it. And I even almost push back on some of the people who think it would have happened a lot sooner because like government's slow, they're inefficient. There's a lot of other political issues they'd rather fight about that get more eyeballs and get more voters. So the head of the CFTC, the head of the SEC, the head of the OCC, the head of the Treasury, these are all pro crypto people. Like to have that kind of lineup within government, I think is a huge validation to where we're headed and sort of what their initiatives are going to be.
I wanna come back to XRP and the decentralization piece because you've used that word quite a bit and it's controversial when it comes to Ripple. How do you justify the decentralization of XRP when there are, first off, a limited amount of validators that are running the protocol, as well as the concentration of the supply, right? It's not fully out there in the open for everybody to be able to participate in that way. And every month there's a release from the escrow where Ripple can dump on the holders. How do you reconcile decentralization with those realities?
Yeah, so I'll take those on in two. I'll start with the supply because I think that's an easy one to handle. I don't think there's any like perfect way to handle the supply of any given token. So there's trade-offs associated with it. So what Bitcoin did, right, was Bitcoin architected this idea of miners, and miners go buy expensive mining equipment. They go take that expensive mining equipment and then essentially, in my opinion, right, like go buy Bitcoin from the protocol. And that whole process is great in the very early stages. But I think it has downsides as well that people like don't realize. Like there was just this whole BIP 110 fight about the undue power of the miners, right? Because all of those miners are there for their own financial incentive. Those miners have an obligation to their shareholders to make as much money as possible. So, what happens when Bitcoin is no longer there to be distributed? What happens if we do keep moving in this world of a store of value and people aren't incentivized to spend or use the Bitcoin network and they're really just there to store value? Do the miners have a different kind of philosophy in what they think is the best way for them to make money? What if they ultimately decide that in order for them to keep mining and providing security to the Bitcoin network, that there has to be an inflationary Bitcoin model? What if they need rewards to be there? So that's one side of it. The other side of it is the simple fact that if you take a look at the XRP Ledger and how the XRP Ledger got started, the whole idea of mining and a way to distribute the tokens was essentially just completely thrown out. And they're like, we can make the XRP ledger faster, more efficient, and better if we don't tack on all these capabilities of distributing the token. And the controversial part, like you said, right, is like Ripple just said, okay, we'll take the tokens and we'll gradually sell them on to the market over time. If blockchain is as important as I think it's going to be, and as if it's as revolutionary as I believe it can be to the financial system, then eventually Ripple's going to be out of tokens and that argument is just going to be gone and dead. What will never change, or at least in the foreseeable future, is the idea that so much compute and so much power and so much efficiency of the Bitcoin system will continually be lost to the mining mechanic. And because of that, it's more of, in my opinion, short-term gain for, I mean, short-term pain for long-term gain for the XRP ledger. Yes, you had to make this compromise in the very early days that a large portion of the XRP Ledger tokens were centralized. But that eventually becomes decentralized. And eventually all the tokens are out there and you're left with a super fast and efficient blockchain. In the Bitcoin case, you had this very fair way of distributing tokens in the very early days. But I think it over the long run, it leads to centralization issues in terms of who has the most electricity and the most mining power. And I also think it leads to long-term effects on the chain that might kill what Satoshi had envisioned for Bitcoin's total use case, where suddenly there the efficiency just isn't there for it to really be this peer-to-peer payment network. And if that falls on itself and Bitcoiners continue to push the narrative of a store of value, that totally discredits the second half of what Bitcoin was meant to do from a sustainability model, which all these transaction fees from everyone pinging Bitcoin around was going to pay for the miners, right? If we move to a no peer-to-peer payments network and all store of value, and the miners aren't getting that revenue from the peer-to-peer payments and those transaction fees, how do the miners get paid? How do they continually provide that security to the network? So it's not to say that like, oh, XRP has this way better model than Bitcoin. I think clearly Bitcoin's model has worked super, super well. But I think it's really important that these aren't just like, oh, the XRP ledger didn't do this and now it lost on every front. Like there's really important trade-offs that came out of this that I believe lead to the long-term scaling of the XRP ledger. And then the other thing in terms of the centralization of nodes, or having less nodes on the XRP ledger, on the DU and L than Bitcoin has miners. I think over time, first of all, I think that expands significantly. But the other thing is like, I don't think it necessarily really matters that much. At the end of the day, Ripple only runs a single validator. They only have so much power over the network. And I really do believe the long term decentralization of these networks really comes in your ability to fork it. Like at the end of the day, you can always fork the XRP ledger off to a different chain. And if society thinks that the XRP ledger that was forked is the more valuable XRP, like society controls where the value goes. Humans control where the value is. It's our perception of what is valuable is what really makes these networks one or the other. And you saw that exactly in the BIP 110 example. Bitcoin forked, and then there was no way of knowing which was the right Bitcoin. It was really just up to people to decide which Bitcoin they thought was the real Bitcoin. So I think these technologies are very much decentralized just in their core open source model in which they can always be forked and you can run away and start a new one. And I just think there's different architectures for how you create the compute and security of it. The XRP ledger for 14 years has been extremely secure, never had any kind of hacks, never had a single party taking over the ledger and compromising it with the current validator model. So I see in terms of just a numbers perspective, hey, there's all these people mining Bitcoin and there's less nodes on the XRP ledger. But in terms of an economic output, unless the XRP ledger was having some issue where that was some massive issue or there was something that closed sourced the code where you couldn't ultimately fork it, I still think the XRP ledger is perfectly decentralized for what it needs to achieve in the world.
Yeah, and I think the idea for what it's intending to achieve is what's really the key line there that often is not necessarily always being fully understood when the argument's being made. I've always thought of like, okay, I did one debate, like XRP versus Bitcoin once, and it was like, oh, XRP is not decentralized. And I was trying to point out that I don't think that that's really also what XRP is designed to do. It's not necessarily meant to decentralize as much as it is meant to distribute, as much as it is to speed up, right, the process of moving the value. So,
You know
uh,
what's interesting too? Like I always ask people this. Um, Even if you're so like actually, I think the XRP ledger is more decentralized in a way where Bitcoin is more distributed. Like if you take a look at who makes up the like 90% of the compute power of the Bitcoin network, it's like the top like six miners, right? Like even though you have less total participants on the XRP ledger, those less participants have significantly more decentralized control. So it's just very interesting. The problem with Bitcoin, in my eyes, in terms of its security architecture, is there's always a monetary incentive to become the biggest and largest. And it's just a money game at the end of the day. Whoever can buy the most hash, whoever can buy the most compute, whoever has the cheapest resources takes the most control over the network. And historically, those types of things ultimately concentrate because the biggest miners can then buy their biggest competition and they can buy the second biggest miners and then they can take out the smaller miners. And then ultimately, what happens is you just have a race to see who can acquire the most fiat resources to build out the biggest Bitcoin mining machines, which is an ultimate centralization. Part of what's really nice about the XRP ledger is everyone has an equal say. It doesn't matter if I'm a DUNL operator or a Ripple is, we both have one vote. There's no amount of XRP Ripple can hold. There's no amount of compute Ripple can buy that changes that. And I think that's a really important piece that's often slept on because it's a long term game theory thing. And I just kind of push back on this idea where if I'm the richest person in the world and I can go buy as much compute as I want, then I ultimately have the most power over Bitcoin. Like that to me always seemed like a little bit of a structural problem in terms of how that was architected. And not that there aren't trade-offs, right? Like I'm never going to say like the XRP ledger way of doing things is absolutely perfect and this is a huge problem with Bitcoin. But I actually think it's one of the things that's slept on about how the XRP ledger is designed. Even if I had $15 billion, I couldn't go and take over X amount of compute or assert my dominance on the XRP ledger like I could on the Bitcoin network.
that's a really, really good point. I would love to hear the rebuttal to that piece because I think that's very strong thinking on that. The incentive, if this is the answer, if this is something that's competitive once again to the fiat system, the incentive is to use the fiat system, print money to go out and buy the mining infrastructure, right?
Yeah, it
Uh,
always seemed to me
yeah,
like everyone's like, "Oh, like I'm not buying Bitcoin, I'm mining it." And it's like, well, you just bought a miner to then go take the second action is mine the Bitcoin. And it's like, is that not like, isn't it just more efficient if I'm just gonna go buy the XRP on the open market rather than going and buying an ASIC in order to go do it? And like there was huge advantages to Bitcoin in the early days of pursuing this model because it got all these people super interested in this way of contributing to this system and being rewarded. I just think every single thing, especially in software, every feature has a limitation on the back end. And like, I think it's like, I think understanding why these things were put in place and why certain things weren't put in place on the XRP ledger front are super important to realize. Like, many of the early creators of the XRP ledger were foundational in the start of Bitcoin, right? They were some of the earliest devs working on Bitcoin. And when they came to go create the XRP ledger, right, they purposely went away from the Bitcoin mining model for this exact reason, right? They ultimately saw long-term issues in terms of scalability and then long-term centralization in terms of the power and fiat to acquire undue amounts of compute over the underlying system. Now, I think Bitcoin has done a great job of not falling too much into any of those things, and we haven't seen any sustained attack on any one of those fronts, but it just depends where the long-term direction is going. The top miners on the Bitcoin network are significantly more concentrated than they used to be, and I only think that's going to continue to go in that direction.
The other thing that so that idea that you're still buying Bitcoin, but you're buying the ASIC first, right? The more efficient way of buying the Bitcoin. What that made me think of is really like really what they're actually buying in a lot of ways. All well, the miners themselves, but they're actually buying the electricity. They're actually buying the energy, right, to create the Bitcoin in a way. And so I want to come to that conversation too, because it's actually kind of interesting. Like the XRP thing has always been Bitcoin is wasting energy. We need to solve this problem. Like this is why XRP is so important. There was like this thing where they had the energy web token. Do you remember that back in
Yeah, 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 I do.
2018 or something like that? And then, yeah, so Bitcoin is like evil in terms of energy, but technically, the other piece of that is that Elon Musk just had this interview that he did. I think it was like earlier this year or last year, where he was talking to a guy about like what is the future of money. He talked about how Bitcoin is one of the only real like currencies, real currencies today in a sense or whatever. He basically was saying that Bitcoin is unique rather because of the fact that it is an energy based currency. And he said that in the future that energy will be currency. And so, and I do think that the incentive mechanism of Bitcoin, whether it concentrates or not, that's a different conversation here. The incentive is if I have to buy electricity or energy to create the Bitcoin, then eventually I'm going to try to find ways, or the only way to compete rather, is to actually find the cheaper sources of the energy, right? So it actually does incentivize clean energy production or uh, renewable energy production and maintenance, preservation in some sense. How do you think about that versus the XRP ledger, or in general? What are your thoughts on that idea?
So like once again, like I think like I'm like 90% there with what you said, but I don't think of Bitcoin as a representation of energy, right? I think of Bitcoin as a byproduct of energy. So like you're when you go and transform energy into Bitcoin, you're ultimately destroying that energy and you're destroying that energy on the pursuit of compute. And that compute is being used to secure the blockchain, and your reward for expending that energy on the blockchain is a Bitcoin token. Now, when Elon Musk talks about the future of energy as money, I totally agree. I think energy will become a transactional vehicle, but it's going to be the direct tokenization of energy, right? Like energy, like it has a ticker, like everyone has an energy price, anyone has an electricity price. You'll be able to directly barter with a tokenized representation of energy, not some quasi product like Bitcoin that uses energy, but ultimately is some form of derivative of the expenditure of that energy. I honestly think like probably a more realistic view of where Elon's vision would be the direct tokenization of energy. So it's a live RWA represented on a network that was purpose built to be able to facilitate the trading of tokenized assets, which once again, I've always thought was something like the XRP ledger, where all these different derivatives of products, all these different real estate tokens, all these different forms of commodity tokens, all of these were turned into tokenized asset issuance. And all you really need at that point is a network that allows and functions specifically for the purpose of exchanging these things and providing liquidity between sources that aren't typically liquid to one another. So rather than going and having to create these energy credits liquid to Tesla stock, then liquid to all these different other assets, you just make it to liquid to something like XRP, and it's ultimately liquid to everything else within the system. So um, I see what you're saying. There's been a long-standing argument that like Bitcoin is like the money version of energy. I just don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I totally understand the argument that you need energy to create Bitcoin, but like that energy is destroyed, put into the form of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the receipt upon the usage of that energy. So I just think there's going to be more efficient and more structural plays on the total value of that energy. I see Bitcoin as more of almost like a short-term derivative of it at the moment.
Very interesting take.
It's almost kind of like saying like, oh, like ultimately I'm really bullish on just like residential real estate in like New York, and like it's going to be skyscrapers made of steel, and they're going to use a whole bunch of steel. So therefore I'm super bullish on the skyscrapers, but not so bullish on the actual price of the steel itself. It's like a secondhand derivative of ultimately what's being created through that market rather than speculating on the pure commodity. So I think the pure commodity in this case is electricity is like what the steel, and Bitcoin is almost like the skyscraper as to the steel industry. It has representation there, it has value associated with it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a secondhand derivative of the market.
Hmm. I hear it. I hear it. Because the compute itself, so this is the other conversation that's being had in society, which is kind of interesting that it's, I mean, it comes right back to this is um, Sam Altman talking about compute as, an asset class at the very minimum, and potentially also, AI tokens as currency. So could it be that Bitcoin sets up the infrastructure for that concept instead of the energy directly? The compute is what the Bitcoin is measuring.
Well, I actually think like in a lot of ways, like I actually think a lot of what AI has done is almost detract from the thesis of Bitcoin because, like, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, there's this huge narrative of Bitcoin being able to be a way to take the excess compute in the system and excess energy and turn it into an economic output, right? So, like, that was like this huge bullish case for Bitcoin. But now it's like we suddenly entered into this new paradigm where there's not enough energy, there's not enough compute, and everyone's turning off their Bitcoin miners to go turn them to AI data centers. So I actually think that's a structural negative for Bitcoin in its whole economic security model of requiring all this advanced compute and energy to provide security to the blockchain. Because if ultimately what we're seeing right now is the world sees it as more valuable at this given time to take all the energy we're producing and all the compute we're producing and go ram that into data centers and AI, and Bitcoin is becoming sort of this second thought, then that kind of destroys the entire model that was talked about previously, which was that Bitcoin and all this energy, I mean, all this energy and compute, the best use case for it is Bitcoin. And if the entire world moves to this model that they would rather use all this compute and energy on the production of super intelligence rather than Bitcoin, what does that once again do to Bitcoin's long term strategic model? That's a hard question to answer. Like, I think you can easily make an argument that we're in a big AI boom right now. And eventually, when Bitcoin goes back up, people will reprioritize a lot of these resources back to Bitcoin rather than artificial intelligence. But it's kind of hard for me to also see that as a bullish thing. Ultimately, I think people are really just deciding that there's better use cases for that energy and that compute than jamming it into Bitcoin. And that's where I would structurally say if you have a digital asset that's just as secure, has been up and running just as long, and is more efficient and doesn't require this large expenditure on compute and energy, it's hard for me to see that as a bad thing. It almost to me just seems like it's kind of de-risked from the ultimate takeover of energy and compute being directed towards super intelligence. Kind of like one of those things. If
Sure.
like the XRP Ledger was having all these like security issues and was constantly getting hacked, and it's like, okay, like we know because of this, like we need the amount of compute and energy Bitcoin is using to run like a secure blockchain, then like no brainer, right? Like you have to direct it there. But if you have like all these other great examples of it working perfectly fine without it, then you sort of say like, wait, do we need to be doing this? And if we don't need to be doing it, what are the pros and cons of it? All I really want to do is highlight the pros and cons of each decision, right? So like the XRP ledger will face some of these decentralization FUD points from not doing some of these things, but there's clearly something on the other side of it that's a risk reward trade off when you have all of these factors playing into the security of the Bitcoin network.
I love it. There's definitely there's one other thing that I definitely wanted to ask about, but I'll go to the next piece, which is how do you look at the threat of quantum computing in the entire thesis of all of this?
Well, actually, the quantum story is very interesting, and once again, we kind of have to break it into um, two different segments. So the XRP ledger has the ability to update addresses, which is really cool and like really important. I don't know if this was ever thought about in the early days. I'd be curious to know if it was, but the XRP ledger, like you can make every single address quantum proof at once, which is really cool because that means you don't have to make any changes to really anything. You don't have to hard fork. You don't have to do anything to make the XRP ledger quantum proof. On the Bitcoin example, there's something actually a little bit more structurally challenging. And that's the fact that you can't make, or at least what current thought is, you can't make the current Bitcoin addresses quantum proof. Now, the problem with that is then you have to have everyone move their Bitcoin to a quantum proof address. And the problem with that is not everyone has access to their Bitcoin. So Satoshi, perfect example. You have two choices, right? Like, what are you guys going to pick? One, you let quantum computers break into Satoshi's wallet and ultimately steal Satoshi's Bitcoin and do whatever they want with it. Or two, you issue a hard fork to the Bitcoin network that moves Satoshi's Bitcoin for him. I believe both are a super dicey road to go down because one, there's a lot of people out there who haven't moved their Bitcoin in a very long time who might not want their Bitcoin moved, and you're essentially going in and moving their Bitcoin for them. That kind of is antithetical to what Bitcoin is always meant to be. Or the other route, suddenly all this Bitcoin is held by, let's say, North Korean state actors who are essentially using quantum computing to hack into these chains. And now they have this massive amount of Bitcoin that can be sold onto the market. Um, so, long story short, there's different blockchains that are going to have bigger things that they have to go up against and fight against quantum. And there's others that are more secure in terms of structure. But ultimately, I've always been an optimist. I think the good guys figure it out. I think there's solutions for a lot of this. And I think the good usage for quantum is going to outweigh the bad usage for quantum. Just like the good uses for artificial intelligence, I think are outweighing the bad, just like the good uses for the internet outweighed the bad. Like you're always going to have people selling illicit things and hiring hitmen on the internet. Like that's just what happened. But the good uses of the internet have significantly reduced the capability for people to even achieve that. And the vast majority of the time of that stuff becomes highly unsuccessful because there's just so much more economic weight, so much more money, so much more activity on people trying to do good. Ultimately, I think the same comes true for quantum computing.
Super interesting. I definitely have not heard it broken down that way. The other question that I did have for you was um, XRP versus XLM and Stellar versus XRP. Like, how familiar are you with uh, Jed McCaleb's reasoning or thought processes for making that initial fork, I guess, of the XRP ledger and why they went in a different direction?
I would say I'm pretty. I'd say I'm pretty well like read on his reasoning. Um, Ultimately, I think Jed had a lot of disagreements with the early XRP and Ripple team. Like he just wanted to do things differently than what they wanted to do. Um, a great example of which was in terms of the ultimate distribution of XRP. one of the big things that Jed McCaleb wanted to do is he wanted to do a bunch of giveaways, right? Like he wanted to hold these big giveaways where they were just essentially distributing the token for free. The Ripple team didn't want that. They didn't really think it made sense to do something like that. So there was a lot of early disagreements. I would say that Jed is more of someone who is probably pursuing this very like I feel like the corporate interests of Ripple probably rubbed Jed the wrong way if I was to just make a total guess and outside perspective on the situation. But ultimately, there's a lot of things that the XLM team decided to do that I think made me lose a lot of faith in XLM, the project. The main one was burning their escrow. Like to me, that was like one of the like that was to me was like unforgivable. Like you have this brand new economic asset to the world that's like supposed to be one of the most important assets the world has ever seen, and you're just going to destroy half of the supply of the token that you held. Like that always to me like made so little sense, and like it clearly didn't do anything for like the economic value of each XLM token either. um so I've always looked at it very similar to like a very crude example of like a Google to a Bing. It's not to say Bing wasn't wildly successful. Like if any of us were the CEO of Bing, we'd probably wouldn't be doing this. We'd have a ton of money, but was it as successful as Google? No, Google just always had a bit of an advantage, right? They were always the first mover. They always had better engineers. They always had better ties to government. They always had better ties to like all these different things. So like I would just put it in that same category. That's sort of how I look at it super broadly. More of a personal reason. I just haven't agreed with a lot of the things that the XLM team has chosen to do over time. But that means absolutely nothing for their success. They can still be extremely successful. But when I'm betting with my dollars, I'm going to be betting more dollars on XRP being more successful than XLM being more successful.
One other thing is this morning we've gotten news about Ledger having some compromises in their logistics providers, and you made a comment this morning about it on Twitter. Wanted to kind of get your quick thoughts on it. So Trezor says a breach that has been had at one of their shipping providers where they exposed customer names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails. 11,700 customers were fully affected, while 2,000 had partial data exposed. You came out and said self custody is really just cheap custody. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so like for the longest time, there's been this like I just feel like the crypto educators have gotten this wrong. There's been this like mentality that when you go buy a cold device, that there is absolutely no risk, right? Like, yeah, they've just been there's no people act like there's not a third party there, but there absolutely is a third party. Like you're buying a $40 device from a company that is there to go make a profit. And it's not to say that these are bad actors at all. Like, in fact, I think like a lot of them are absolutely doing their best, but like I think it's ignorant to think that they can't make a mistake, or I think it's ignorant to think that these people have some foolproof way of generating keys that is going to be indestructible into the future. And I just felt like for the longest time, the narrative in crypto has been, oh, well, if you self custody, nothing can happen to you. Like I've seen people's houses get flooded. It's destroyed their cold storage devices. I've seen in the Palestine fires, houses being burned down. It destroys ledgers and seed phrases. I've seen now with cold card, the seed phrases just being generated incorrect. Now with Trezor, and this also happened to Ledger, data breaches of devices. One of the most popular hacks is just a wrench attack. Hey, show up to your house, give me your ledger, dip out and leave. Like it's just one of those things. I just feel like the crypto industry does a really bad job of explaining to people the risks of these devices. And the truth is like there's a reason why really rich people choose to custody their assets in secure places outside of like their house, right? Like people don't hold all their money under a mattress. People don't hold all their gold in like some back room of their house. Like it's not to say that these devices aren't really good for a large portion of the market. It's not even to say that you shouldn't use these devices as part of your plan. I just think it's really important to understand that there's really big pitfalls in this market. And I think the people who have gotten themselves into the most trouble are the people who just blindly think that these things are foolproof and that they can put their entire net worth on one of these things, and there can never be a third party that has any capacity to disrupt that sort of storage way. So that's really what I mean by it. I think one of the things that's going to become a very appetizing solution for a lot of people over the long run is going to be things like institutional custody, the capability of working with more advanced security modules, the capability to deal with things like multi-factor authentication and seed phrase sharding. Like, there's a lot of technology out there that just can't be represented in a $40 device. You know, it's just not the price point of the average retail consumer. Um, so that's really what I mean. Like, you make sacrifices when you buy a $40 device in the same exact way where if you go buy a $3,000 car, right, you're not going to get the same perks and features and reliability as a $30,000 car. So I think a lot of people overlook it. I think the crypto industry has not done the best job at really fully understanding and portraying what these devices' security flaws are to people. And I just hope a lot of people moving forward understand that they're everything in life has a risk and a reward. And a lot of people who have been selling these things as just being totally decentralized, no counterparty risk. I think they should probably rethink that.
Very well articulated, Mickle. We have one little thing that we like to do with our guests at the end. It's a one-word game, super fast. I'll say a word, and then you give me your first word that comes to your mind in response.
Oh, I
So,
love that.
all right, you ready?
Yeah.
Ripple.
Oh God, I might be bad at this. Ripple. Largest company ever. That's not one word, but I'll get better.
There we go. Brad Garlinghouse.
Brad Garlinghouse. Actually, kind of a surprising one. Genuine.
Clarity Act.
2026.
RLUSD.
Corporate.
Card-
Sorry, what was that last one?
Cardano.
Vaporware.
Ooh. ETFs.
Adoption.
Bitcoin.
Digital gold.
Solana.
Meme coins.
AI.
Super intelligence.
Fantastic, man. You did it. I was totally expecting you to say collectible for Bitcoin.
Well, I had to. It's like I am a big Bitcoin bull, and as much as I like to give things out there to make people talk and think of things differently, like I don't ever want that to seem like I'm detracting from where Bitcoin is going. Massively bullish on Bitcoin. I think it has a massively successful future, and there's a lot of collectibles that have outpaced Bitcoin in terms of appreciation. So not necessarily a bad thing either.
Totally. Well, thanks a ton for joining us, man. I know that you've got a hop. Anybody who's watching this, Mickle, where can they find you? Where should they keep up with everything you're doing?
Yeah. First of all, guys, thank you so much for coming me on. I said this in the pre-show little room. You guys have been blowing up. I think you guys are doing an excellent job. This discussion was super fun. If you want to find me, just type in XRP Mickle XRP. It's one derivative of the two on X and the other on YouTube. So make sure to come check it out. I try to talk as much about what's going on with the XRP ecosystem every single day as I can. And love coming on shows like this to be able to talk about different stuff, get into the weeds, talk about the pros and cons and all of that. So thank you so much for giving me the platform.
Of course, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Everyone, the links are down below. Go show them some love.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
You
Cheers,
too, man.
Bye-bye. Cool. How are we feeling, chat?
Heck yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Lots of cool questions and discussion in the chat. The chat We'll also be continuing after today, although we still have the second half of the show to go. So don't go anywhere. But we will be continuing these discussions in the Memes in Markets HQ private Discord as well. So we just launched that very recently. We still have a little bit of time left for the early people who want to be here. You will get some extra perks for joining the private Discord. You can actually find the link to that in the description down below. In there, we're talking about whatever we talked about on the show and continuing those conversations. We're also adding new things to the conversation. You guys are getting ahead of what it is that we're going to discuss, as well as having some insights on the things that Ben and I are looking at, both in the markets and in the way that we're using social media and things of that nature as well. Check it out.
Absolutely. Come hang out with us. There's already some legends in there. We've been chopping it up and plenty more to come. And as these crypto markets get more exciting, that'll become more and more of a fun and valuable place to hang out. So definitely, yeah, come through.
Yep. You can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can click a link in the description down below. It's also a cool opportunity to just network with other people who are in the space that are doing cool stuff. So check us out.
Totally. For that conversation, what were the biggest takeaways for you?
I liked the piece about, I haven't really thought through enough of the idea that there is a natural incentive to centralize the mining power. Like, I still gotta, we gotta talk about that to another maximalist, because I do feel like that's there. I think they would say it doesn't matter.
We should have him on with someone else who's a Bitcoin maxi and let them debate, like you said.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of cool discussions to have on that.
Next, I have a lot of questions for him, but obviously with the first conversation, I wanted to let you guys do your thing as the more resident XRP people. But especially at the end, we said Cardano is vaporware. I was like, I would love to hear why. I think Cardano's going to have a resurgence and get a lot more respect put on its name here in the not too distant future, because I think Midnight is a big key to that, because as they roll that out, there's everyone talks about adoption, or people, how many people are using the chain and shit like that, but we're still so early, man. One crazy user experience that is incorporating the technology that's, say, exclusive to them, that changes the whole dynamic of everything, right? So yeah, I'd be curious to go down that thread with them too.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And I do think Midnight is a potential major unlock for the entire Cardano ecosystem.
Yeah.
It should provide real solutions to real problems, especially in this world that we're moving into.
And it also does take some risk off the table because of its ability to incorporate with almost all the major chains, that in any future, the questions are, do I try to build this myself, which would be really hard to do, or do I use this plug and play solution and have it to offer to my users right away?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with how fast things move, I feel like that's going to be a pretty compelling value prop that I think a lot of people, even in the Cardano community, will be like, oh, I get it now. Do you know what I mean? Because right now they're just pissed. They're like, because even I talked to my friend last night at the thing that I was telling about, Keith, and he's a crypto guy. I've talked to him a bunch before. His name's Paul.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, I've been seeing a lot of headlines about Cardano's CEO going off and doing stuff with a new company. And I'm like, see, that's the headline horse shit that everyone gets to do.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Because he's not in it like we are. He used to be, but he's got life going on, right? So he's like, it was very interesting to hear his perspective as someone who more so just reads the headlines now. And I'm like, that's very interesting.
And so but the headline was like a FUD thing, because it's like, oh, he's not even working on Cardano anymore, kind of thing.
Totally. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
And there's just been such consistent FUD, because he's pretty polarizing, obviously, and he does give these reactions to these things, right? So it's almost like they start fishing for him too, right? Because they know, if I piss them off, it's gonna bring eyeballs to my page. The incentive structure there is pretty bad.
That's true. That's
right?
true.
The more ironically, he's actually encouraging that behavior, because the more that you feed into it, you're sending more eyeballs to them. At the end of the day, they don't care. But long term, that's bad for their business model, because they're torching relationships. But a lot of these people that are bloggers or whatever, they're worried about hitting their output quota and their clicks quotas. That's all they give a shit about. It's dumb. They shouldn't think like that, but the internet has created that philosophy.
That's a really good point. But yeah, what were some other things that you thought that might come up on another conversation?
I wanted to poke a lot more of the Bitcoin threads, but I didn't want to monopolize the conversation, right? There's a lot of things where he was saying things and I would have challenged them, but I didn't want to like take away from all the questions you had to ask, so I didn't want to go down them too much. But a lot of the things that I feel like whenever we talk about these things, there's always like holes in everyone's logic, right? Because we've all been so siloed, and we don't even really catch ourselves when we are making contradictions within the same conversation. And we all do that. I'm not saying anyone's immune to that, but I'm saying I thought there was a few there where I was like, but if you change the lens of analysis there, I think you may see that whole thing very, very different. And a lot of the things that were being discussed, it's like it's contingent on something going down a specific path, where if it goes down a different path, like everything is completely rewritten. Because like, let's say even the whole thing of where he's like, oh, but like Bitcoin can't be this, 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 and this, and this, and this. It's like, why do those things even exist? Because it's all horseshit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like all of these financial instruments are like
right.
Are downstream of the broken money.
Right. That was another thread that it came up in my head, but I didn't get a note down of like, okay, so then how do you feel about the entire system as it is today? Is it okay as it is? Is this like acceptable?
Yes. Because he said he wouldn't even sign up for the future. But like, I think when he's saying that, he's thinking that the supply demand economics of general things you're buying wouldn't change. Right. So of course you wouldn't sign up for spending in a asset that goes up. But what if prices are going down? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll have to continue the convo, because I think that's very good points. And that was where I was trying to come up with something there, but you've articulated that very well that I couldn't articulate at all.
No, and you guys are the XRP head, so I was like, I'll just sit back and watch. But he seems like a very cool dude, though. Like he seems chill.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure he'll come back.
Yeah, and I love his mentality too. That like he will answer anything and talk about whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah, and a hyper optimist. We gotta have that, folks.
Yeah, 100%.
We need it. Let's see what else, because there was one other thing that I thought was interesting thoughts. I guess that was kind of one of them. Oh, and then yes. So for me, I'm still kind of stuck on the idea that I've realized that I'm so leaning on other things that need to happen that have not happened yet for XRP to be the thing that it's kind of being touted as in society.
Can you articulate, like, do they come to mind, like specifics, or?
Yeah, like all the banks need to use it.
Could they be already?
They could be, but if they are, then why wouldn't that be reflected in the price?
Maybe because it's not been announced publicly.
I guess you could take that approach, but I would imagine that wouldn't matter, because if I think that's the logic, is like, because the retail doesn't matter. We just happen to be along for the ride because we understood it, we bought it, But when the banks actually turn it on, like when they flip the switch, right, that's when the price appreciation happens.
The moment, yeah.
And so it becomes, okay, is that just like some conspiracy then? Or will there be some moment, or will there be smaller moments that look like a moment or whatever?
NDAs. So, yeah, it's a big thing that here in the XRP community is a whole lot of NDAs. But it's fascinating to see how much these things are changing. Like even in Canada's very rigid banking system, it's fascinating to see like Wealth Simple. I sent you something from them where they're really innovating in the space, and like I think that they're going to come eat the bank's lunch here. And I'm very curious to see how that impacts everything here, because they've been like a fortress, the banks here. There's like 4 or 5 that run basically everything. And we've got our stablecoin that we're rolling out too. And they did that big old test. I think it was like for millions of dollars to test the network or whatever it was. And it was successful. So I'm sure there'll be some crazy stuff coming in Canada too.
Super, super cool. Well, anything else you want to talk about from that piece?
Jay Huron said, please read my comment. So let's read. Crypto liquidity ultimately depends on centralized stablecoin issuers and centralized exchanges. The crypto ecosystem can have significant centralized points of control, even when the underlying blockchain is decentralized. That's not really, is that a question?
Okay, so crypto liquidity ultimately depends on centralized stablecoin issuers. It's sometimes can have significant control, even not like. What's the takeaway from that?
I don't know.
I definitely see that that's a possibility there, Jay Huron. I think that makes sense.
Is it XRP is at a 2-year low and massively oversold? I think almost everything is oversold.
Yeah, I mean, from any technical definition, for sure, you would be able to say it's all oversold. But yeah, so that's people were freaking out. It hit under $1 for the XRP heads. Some people are like, "Oh my goodness, this is scoop up a bull." And from a perspective of having been around for a while, it's kind of crazy that that's the new milestone, right? Like under $1. I remember 17 cents in 2020. I don't know if anybody remembers that dip. That was brutal. But yep, under $1. Wow. Like guys, if we look 30 years out, what does all this stuff look like? And that's a long time. Don't get me wrong. That's a generation, 25 years plus. What on earth does the world look like? I don't know, man, but $1 XRP might sound pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think we get desensitized to things either way when things are bad or they're good. And I think that a lot of these prices for the major projects will look crazy in hindsight. I think we're looking at a lot of like Amazons right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of what they end up becoming, in terms of you would have been laughed at for buying when they were at the lows, but you'd be very happy like 20 years later, 30 years later. So we shall see. But is there anything else you wanted to go on about this, or should we jump into the second half?
Let's jump on into the second half.
Let's get it.
Got some news. Right off the bat, folks, we got some interesting stuff hot off the press. Let me tell you about it. Trump, apparently, in the United States, greenlighting private cyber offensives. Huh? So Trump just signed a memo letting vetted private U.S. companies run government-directed cyber attacks. These operations would target foreign criminal groups behind ransomware, fraud, and scams on Americans. This is the first major policy shift authorizing private firms for offensive cyber work under federal oversight, and this responds to over $20 billion in yearly U.S. losses from transnational cybercrime. Whoa.
It sounds good in theory, but I feel like that's a pretty slippery slope.
Oh, that's an extremely slippery slope. I actually had some guys talking about this in a group chat this morning, and one of the guys in there made a really interesting point. And he was like, well, doesn't this in a sense kind of incentivize like new companies to be formed with this exact sort of an agenda, right? Like he said, but is this going to lead to us seeing more companies that pop up for the sole purpose of handling federal cyber attack operations? I think that's an interesting thought. How different is that from the Lazarus Group in North Korea, right? If there are these like state-backed hacker groups, So yeah, that's an interesting future that we're looking at.
Especially when you get to pick the definition of words.
Because then the next piece that one of these people talk about is like, okay, another person said, that's why cyber war is so great for nation states. There's no accountability. There's no need for approval, no need for oversight, just pay and it gets done. So also the question becomes like, yeah, like who's getting attacked here? In the name of what as well? So definitely something interesting to think about there. Get the world's most powerful nation by thought, or at least by having access to the money printer, be able to incentivize hacking and that being legal and cool. Interesting thoughts. But I've got the next piece. Anything else you want to talk about there?
No, you're good, man.
Cool. The next piece involving our man again. Apparently Trump gets sued over paid Truth Social access. President Trump is being sued for offering early access to his Truth Social posts for up to $100,000 a month is the offer. The lawsuit was filed by The Intercept and Freedom of the Press Foundation in New York federal court. The paid service called Truth API gives subscribers faster access to posts that can move markets, and the plaintiffs argue it denies equal public access to official presidential announcements.
No shit.
Well, I think that assuming that premise holds up in court, that there's something wrong with that, then they probably got a strong argument. That's what it is. So yeah, that's the piece there. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, definitely keep an eye on how that develops. But crazy shit.
Yeah. It's like there's no denying that there's something off and wrong about the service. So I guess the next question just becomes what gets done about it. We've talked about this quite a bit, and I hate to look at it this way, but look, I love to look at it this way. I hate to talk about it, but at the end of the day, like we are being desensitized. And like this would probably be the final string of like, if this is all right and if people are cool with it, then like
Everything's fine.
yeah, like there's literally no line. So I don't know. But to avoid going too deep into the world of politics, the Tate brothers have had their Elias passports exposed. So, British prosecutors allege that Andrew and Tristan Tate hold multiple passports under false names.
Yeah.
Tristan used the alias Vladimir Scorpius on a Mexican passport. Filings call the documents proof of flight risk under their U.S. extradition case. The brothers now face charges of crimes that are not good crimes.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that that's a pretty severe crime to use an alias for like a fake passport.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting thing because I guess you're breaking the laws of the country that you've done it for. I don't know. I guess it depends on the laws of the country.
Probably a bunch. Yeah. Probably multiple. That whole thing, I really hope that as that proceeds, like we get to see it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that would be nice for sure.
We probably won't, but it'd be fascinating to follow along, like especially if you got to like where are they going back to? Is it the UK?
I guess they got extradited to the UK.
Okay, they won't. I doubt they'll show us.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a crazy name though. It's a wild name for a Mexican passport, Vladimir Scorpius.
That's gotta be fake, man. There's no way.
Well, yeah, I mean, wait, what do you mean?
I mean, like that can't
that's
be
the actual name that he
Yeah.
used. Who knows, man? Who knows? The next piece that I've got here, Phoebe Gates, Fia, hit with cookie stuffing claims. Oh, okay, this is the that app. Okay, so Phoebe Gates is a 23-year-old daughter of Bill Gates, and she co-founded a shopping app called Fia. This app is accused of placing affiliate cookies without user clicks to claim extra commissions. So let me back up because I was reading that and not understanding what was going on. So you've got this thing called affiliate marketing, right? When people refer you to go and use someone else's product. And when they're doing that, they're usually using a link, right? That will attribute that, oh, you came from this person's link. And so the cookie piece is like when you get to the website, a cookie is essentially a record. It's a data point that marks your IP address or your identity in whatever way they want to link it to you as a user there. So like you have cookies in your browser. When you go back to Instagram every day, it knows that you're logged in to Instagram because there's a cookie that holds your username and data information, imagine, right? Anyways, so apparently this app is accused of placing affiliate cookies without user clicks, and they're claiming extra commissions. So I guess this is an affiliate product that she's offering, is what I'm reading this as. And so basically they're trying to get more commissions for sending people to other people's stores to buy stuff and claiming commissions on things that they didn't actually get the commission for. Maybe it's the other way around. I'm not sure clearly on this.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the cookie stuff is so in the world of affiliate marketing, they give like different offers based on the attribution window of the cookies. So like, let's say a good offer may say that you got like a 90-day period where they'll track it. So that if you sent them there, if they buy, even on that not like that same session time, they still know that individual clicked from the link that you sent them. And then they'll give you like that 90-day period where if they buy during that time, you still get credit for it. So like affiliate marketing was a crazy opportunity in the earlier days of Google because ranking in Google SEO is incredibly easy. And that's also why you shouldn't trust most of the blog articles that you read online because they're just affiliate marketing pieces. Like it'll say like best this or that or whatever, but really it's just whoever had the best like affiliate program most times. So that's just something to keep in mind. And yeah, I've not used that app before. What's it called again?
It's called FIA, PHIA, I believe.
FIA.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what they actually did because
Your personal shopping assistant.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like there was some other controversy around her in this already.
If you shopping, I took credit for sales it didn't drive. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, because I knew we've talked about her before. Maybe it was because she was on Forbes turned into 30 or something, and they were like, she's next.
I don't think she'll see jail time.
Probably not, but who knows, man. Well, I'm guessing there's pretty much no circumstances to which she actually sees jail time. But, next piece I've got: farmer ruins crops on AI advice. So apparently, a 67-year-old Chinese farmer lost 25 acres of sesame after following an AI app's herbicide tip. So the app suggested a weed killer that also destroyed the young plants, and AI later identified the chemical as the cause. And this story went viral over AI reliability in real world farming.
That's the big issue, like if that's true, like where they're saying that these LLMs can never be perfect, then how do you let them be fully autonomous? Right? If a mistake is inevitable, then it could screw everything. Like,
that's a very good point.
So I don't know. And I'm sure that they'll say that they can solve that, or maybe like having other ones check their work, and then that's the solution where you just get down the chances of an error so small. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see how it all goes down, man. This next piece, still in the theme of some AI stuff. We've got Grokbot beta launch. So XAI's @bot account announces Grokbot early beta as autonomous AI teammates. So the bot will sign into tools, complete tasks like negotiations, and support like a human would. This is available only to Super Grok Heavy and Cursor Premium subscribers. This aims to handle real work such as email, CRM, and website building. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of these bots are becoming more prevalent. They do like raise concerns for me for sure of like how much you're going to be reliant on these things, but and how good they are. But I saw it going around everywhere on X, obviously, because of the fact that it's their platform. Do you have that tier of plan on X?
I don't. I don't pay for that. I don't think I do, at least.
Got it. Yeah, so we'll see what the feedback is, like what we hear, because it's so hard to tell if anything's actually that good on Twitter because people just hype everything up, and most of them are getting paid to hype it up, right? So there's just so much bullshit all around. I'm pretty desensitized to it all, right? Like, remember, OpenClaw was gonna like mean everyone lost their job in 2 weeks, kind of deal, right? So
correct. Lenny actually made a post, and I just saw at the bottom. He does disclose where he sits in the equation. So let's read some of what Lenny had to say. Lenny, he has a podcast. What's it called? I'm sorry.
Lenny's podcast, I think.
Lenny's podcast. Of course. He's a huge tech influencer. Also has like a background in building something, right? He built something, or am I tripping?
I'm not entirely sure, but he brings on his show, he brings on all the best people in software, like different all across the stack.
Yeah. So he reacted to this tweet. He said, "I got early access to Grokbot and I'm hooked. Haven't been this excited about a new AI product in a while. It's like OpenClaw, but super easy, reliable, and less scary to use. I think this will be a huge new product line for Cursor, Grok, SpaceX. I've already found so many ways to use it that have meaningfully made my life better. One is matchmaking people looking for jobs with companies who are hiring. See below. 2, auto-replying to support emails. Saves some hours. 3, scanning my credit card statements and finding recurring subscriptions to cancel. Cool. 4, sending me really good briefs for upcoming podcast guests." And so he says you can see his actual set of agents, blah, blah, blah. And he said, "I'm not an investor in this, nor do I have any ties to this product or company. I'm just a fan." So
interesting.
That was his reaction. Cool. Anything on that one?
No, we'll have to wait to, because people are always blown away when they do these initial things, right? But how long-term sustainable is it, right? Like how many mistakes does it make? So and then after you do these initial things, is it still like a wow experience after you've done those 4 or 5 things? You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Yeah. This next piece, Collector Crypt hits $1 billion in revenue. So this is a Solana project that tokenizes real graded Pokemon and collectible cards. They just announced $1 billion in gross revenue from the platform, and the official Solana account and crypto communities celebrated the real world asset milestone. Did you hear anything about this?
I've heard of the brand before, but this is also why NFTs prices coming back are absolutely inevitable. Like the more physical collectors that start to also use tools like this, where again, like they're not even holding or custodying the card. So like the physical, tangible nature of it becomes genuinely irrelevant. Right. So for all the people who were like shitting on me being like, people want to hold something physical, I'm like, no, they're gambling, brother. You know what I'm saying? And so like if you look at the supply and demand economics of an NFT collection, the price can just go up so much faster. And so I think that's going to bring and pull a lot of people in. So yeah, collecting, I don't see it going anywhere. I think there will be a lot of volatility in all these markets, and I still think that if I held Pokemon cards, I'd be selling some of them right now. But yeah, we will see. I think we're pretty close to an NFT comeback here from price points.
It definitely feels like there's a lot of rumbling going on.
It was inevitable, man. It was inevitable because of all the things that I said, right? Like for the last 5 or 6 years, there's so many people that had never made money for themselves or money online or money through something they liked until they started collecting either sports cards, Pokemon cards, whatever it was. And now they've become like very financially comfortable holding pieces of fucking plastic. Right? Like, is that really that far away from holding a JPEG? Like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? And also there's a lot of pros that come to the JPEG holding, right? In terms of access to community. So yeah, I think that we'll see a pretty crazy, not everything. Like we will never ever see that BS again where everything went up and you could just mint a collection and it went to like multiple ETH floor quickly. I don't think that ever happens. But I would be looking at the NFT collections that the builders never left. Because now it is so much easier to provide more value to a holder of your NFT because the development costs are so dramatically lower.
That makes sense. I was thinking about this collector crypt thing, and I'm trying to understand. So, like, but what I did find is that because I'm like, okay, so you're buying a real thing, right? It's a real world asset that you're buying, but you're buying the digital representation of it. So, always in that case becomes the question of okay, who's holding the thing? What's the custody of the solution, right?
Yeah, so I think it's I'm on their thing right now, and it's like Fort Knox, but with a marketplace. So I think it is in like a reputable place where that's locked down. And a buddy of mine is trying to build like a competitive platform to a degree, handling the same underlying mechanism in a slightly different way. So it'll be very curious to see if he can pull it off. But yeah, I don't see this going anywhere.
Yeah, so I found that what they do is they have third-party vaults such as PWCC and ALT with full insurance, while ownership of each specific card is represented by a self-custodied or platform-traded NFT on the Solana blockchain.
And there's also so many of these tools being made where they throw in like the gambling mechanics into these things, period, right? Like the fake world assets is one of the biggest one that's been launched as of late, primarily for the Ethereum blockchain. So FWA.fun. And so how it works is like both the contributor to the pool. So like basically I could go in there, let's say I had a CryptoPunk. I could go in there and give it to the pool, and then I earn a piece of the rewards from the platform. But there's a chance that someone playing the game could pull my CryptoPunk and then it's theirs, right? So you are playing a bit of a game there on both ends, right? Like you could put in a small amount of money and then win a CryptoPunk, which is worth 30 plus ETH, which also that's dramatically underpriced, like way underpriced. But that's the game. So you could make money from putting your stuff into the vault and it never actually gets taken. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Totally. Yeah, super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, so we'll see. But the collectible thing is a big deal.
Next piece that I've got is Trezor with their shipping data breach. Chipmunk, Trezor's shipping partner, exposed names, addresses, phones, and emails of 13,000 recent customers. Only new US, UK, EU orders in the prior 90 days were affected. Trezor systems and devices remain uncompromised. Crypto users face higher phishing risk from the leaked personal data. Darn. You hate to see it, folks. So Trezor put out a statement about this. They said, hey, we have some difficult news to share. Unfortunately, one of our shipping providers experienced a data breach. And then they outlined what occurred. So this is tough for Trezor for many reasons. One of them is because like this is one of the things that they could stand on. It's like, oh, well, Ledger, the largest competitor, had this exact problem essentially. It wasn't the exact same problem. It wasn't their shipping provider, but it was their own personal database got leaked, and the same threat to the user was a problem. Was that you had your name and associated with the fact that you were buying from this company associated to your address and that whatnot. So anyways, so Trezor, and this was the reason I was always like, oh, well, guys, like Trezor, I mean, with Ledger, I can always say, like, they're asking me, which hardware wallet do I buy? I'm like, well, I do have to say that this is something that happened with Ledger, right? And therefore, Trezor does not have this problem. They have not had this. And now they kind of have. In a totally different way, because technically it's a third-party shipping provider, and it's only the last 90 days. But it just reveals, like XRP Mickle said, there are different levels of risk that come with having one of these providers. Now, for instance, you could buy one of these devices in person at Best Buy, which is so wild to me. When I realized I could walk into Best Buy and buy a Ledger, I was like, that's crazy. But that's one thing, right? That you could technically do to mitigate someone having your address per se. Now, obviously, if your address is noted in Best Buy somewhere, then if they hacked Best Buy and saw that you bought a Ledger, then they'd be able to know. But that's one mitigation of that extra piece of the shipping. But, you know, I'm also thinking to myself right now, it's like, dang, are we going to get to the point to where that could happen anyways, where it's like you have to register your address in order to buy a hardware device?
I'm sure they'll always try something like that.
It ends up being like a weapon, like the ATF is like tracking crypto wallets. But anyways, yeah, it's tough after just like literally 2 weeks or so after one of the biggest hardware wallet incidents to have another thing like this happen. It's not the same thing. It's very different. Okay, to be super clear, guys. Like Cold Card was legitimately hacked into. Like they stole hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. That was the story, not that names and addresses were leaked. It's a very different thing. But definitely sucks for people who have to think about that now. Like, my address was leaked. The other solution that I always talk to people about when doing these things is like, if you're going to ship it to a different address, ship it to a PO box, right? And don't ship it to your house, because then it's a totally different thing as well. That you're dealing with as a threat at that point. But yeah, unfortunately, like in Europe, this is a much bigger deal. At least it has been. Like there's been like lots of incidents of people legitimately like being targeted.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think we'll come up with a lot more creative solutions to deal with a lot of these things too. With so many people now being able to build things, like I'm hard pressed to believe we don't come up with some pretty compelling solutions.
I think that's super fair to say, man. Let's see. Someone said safest way is to go direct to the factory or rob the truck. Oh, don't rob the truck, brother. But yeah, and this kind of plays back into the narrative too, around the idea of like, okay, these events happening back to back, so scary, hardware, it's not safe, it's not secure. You know, hey, just putting it out there. Just keep your stuff diversified, guys. There's all these different ways to do it, and this is what I look at as a once in a generation type of an opportunity. And so you can't allow any one event to mess you up. And that's, you know, this in this case, it's much more of a safety concern, right, than in like a hacking or a, you know, having something stolen concern, because it's just your address that's on the line here. So keep these things in mind, folks.
100%.
Next piece. Solana approaches loss of finality after a routing fault. So a routing failure at TerraSwitch pushed 28% of staked SOL delinquent. So about 90 validators in Europe and the APAC region went offline for 33 minutes. This affected validators and lost around the affected validators lost around 333 SOL in rewards, and the incident showed risks from concentrated validator infrastructure providers. And so Solana has responded to this. The Solana network stayed online with blocks and transactions continuing. 597 of the 699 staked validators kept voting. Affected ones recovered within 40 minutes. The Solana Foundation delegation program validators were unaffected, and the event shows validators spread across independent providers. All right, so Jacob Creech here made the statement as the VP of Tech at the Solana Foundation. So shout out to them for getting this information out there. But yeah, some problems with the validation of the Solana network, which is, not ideal stuff. But these things have happened on a lot of different chains.
It's new shit we're building, man. There's going to be hiccups.
Yeah, normally I would rag on Solana, and I'm not going to rag on the fact that Solana is always going down for different reasons every once in a while, but I could.
Yeah, they always say like the whole back like N64 days when you'd have to pull out the cartridge and blow on it to get it to work again.
Exactly. Well, with that, those are the news stories. We've got some things that are going on in the world that we got to react to. We got some memes, folks.
Hit me with it.
One of our favorite topics. We have one of our favorite people. Oh, I guess I won't speak for us. I'll speak for myself. CoffeeZilla.
I like coffee.
Coming out and making some statements about gambling in financial apps. It's cool to see the conversation being had. Recent headlines are suggesting that Gen Z is increasingly using apps like Robinhood for sports betting and prediction markets instead of traditional long-term investments. And influencers are often promoting these platforms to young audiences, blurring the lines between professional and financial advice and high-risk gambling. So let's hear him talk about this.
Let's do it.
Okay, looks like we have just the full thing, so I guess we'll just hear him for a little bit. Cool.
Hello, welcome back. I got rage baited into making this video. I'm going to be upfront about it. I thought that I wasn't going to make another Voidzilla video until I finished the healthcare investigation, which is months behind, by the way, till I finished the merch collection. But instead, yes, I got sucked into the discourse by the story about a gambling emergency. You guys know it's an interest of mine, these prediction markets, these scumbag gamblification people, the influencers who promote it. And I got headline guide. I mean, that's really what a lot of this boils down to. And I say this as a guy who makes headlines. Sometimes I probably get you with a headline, but this is the one that got me. It's a subtle one. It's actually not the gambling emergency. Here it is now. New generation of investors is blurring the lines between information, advice, and entertainment. This is a survey by Betterment. You might wonder, what's the problem with this headline? Why were you so upset? Well, just look at the articles coming out of it. Gen Z investors treat sports betting as a financial plan. Gen Z is moving money from stocks to sports betting in wealth plans. 1 in 4 Gen Z investors now treat sports betting as part of their financial plan.
Like, look at the social proof that comes from the distributors of those articles, right? Like, those are some of the biggest, most trusted names in finance. If you normalize the behavior enough, it's like, okay, this is just normal.
Yeah, this is super wild, the timing of him releasing this. Like, last night very much so was like writing about this exact phenomenon, like writing out the logical chain of like, this is what happens when people feel like they don't have a chance. And then when it's being shoved in their face every single day on social media.
And they're told that everyone else is doing the same thing.
And then they're told that this is the answer.
Yes.
Right. So, yep.
And it has everything to do with the implication of that story. It's like, hey, there's this new generation. They're just dumb and blurring the lines. They're blurring the lines between information, advice, and entertainment. And my thought is like, Yeah, we've been talking about how this is an inevitability of these platforms like Robinhood, where you literally can gamble on sports in the same app that you can go ahead and do your 401k investing in. By the way, people think I'm joking when I say stuff like this. It's like I'm making up some conspiracy. You literally just have to watch the guy say it. I'm going to show you. He just spells it all out what the plan is.
We think we can be a place for not just their active trading, but also their retirement savings, their cash that they want to earn interest on. We're really building what I call a financial super app.
Talk about gambling, let's talk about predictive. If I want one site for my capital, and I really do, I happen to like DraftKings very much, and I do daily fantasy with my kids stuff, but can I have everything on my Robinhood?
You can have many things. Prediction markets, as you mentioned, is one of the new exciting things.
Like, that's what drives me so crazy about this story. It kind of...
Even, what's that guy's name? Jim Cramer. He's like saying, I do this with my kids.
That's crazy, bro.
Bro, these people are fucked. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, go ahead.
Ignores this and just jumps to like, oh, it's just a generational problem, as if Gen Z is especially broken. I mean, you can see sports betting companies competes with investing for Gen Z's dollars. This is Bloomberg's write-up about it. And basically 52% of Gen Z said that they directed investing funds to sports betting at least once in the past year. 26% say it's a deliberate part of their long-term financial strategy. And look, you can't believe all these surveys. You can't believe everything a survey says. You should treat it always as sort of some fuzzy indicator about the world. But there are also undeniable, numbers which show this is true. People are betting more on sports than ever before. Quote, Americans spend more on sports bets than on movies, art, museums, and music combined. But basically, I think any discussion about our gambling problems, especially as it relates to like generational gaps in the pattern of gambling and how people think about gambling, must be accompanied by a talk about the tech platforms that have absolutely been pushing this the entire time. Robinhood CEO, he's sort of one of many guys doing this, but he's got arguably the brokerage with the most, sort of young person mind share. And he says event markets, aka prediction markets, is their fastest growing unit.
No shit. It's addictive. Like, what do you mean?
Crazy, man. Yeah, it's showing up in the numbers left and right. It's becoming a massive revenue driver for the business, and it's being disguised as some form of investment. Can you believe it?
I'm excited to see you make more content on this stuff, because I think that you'll get pulled into some conversations where it'll be good to have you in the room, because there's a lot of crazy shit.
It's kind of wild how easy this is going to be to talk about. Like, in terms of like, this is something that is not like, it wasn't necessarily something that I was thinking about. And obviously you were the one who brought this to my attention and said, hey, like, this is going to continue to be a trend. This is going to be a thing.
Mm.
And like, I can look back and now rather, it's just like, it's literally, it's in my app. Like, I was talking to Sierra on the log out pod, like,
Yeah.
brother, like, I opened Coinbase and that's what it said. Yo, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah, it'll get louder and louder, and yeah, it'll become a bigger and bigger issue. And it's already such a bigger issue than people realize, because there's still like the shame and stigma around saying that you have a problem, one. And two, also, like, besides the guys that take their biggest loss as a trophy, like, they may say they're down a lot, but they never say that they're stuck there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll say, oh, I lost so much, but they always talk like it's a temporary thing. But eventually you run out of sources to get money from, and then you can't play anymore. And then you're in a massive pool of debt.
yeah, I was talking to my my Portuguese teacher about this yesterday, and it was like, well, it's a really big thing here. And they have like banned casinos and like they have these bingo houses that they had. I guess they've banned that now. But then the World Cup comes around, and the largest, right, media channel, which is called Kaze TV, it's on YouTube. All of the games were being broadcasted through Kaze TV. It's a Brazilian network. And gambling was all over it.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't watch sports without it now. Even the broadcasters, they'll give you like their parlay of the game and stuff like that. It's such a massive
Exactly.
part of the broadcast.
100%.
They're just making so much money, man. Like there's so many signals where why I saw this coming a mile away was anecdotally, like the people in my life, like I saw that, right? Had friends that were clearly addicted to this thing. It wasn't the fun thing that they were telling me it was. But there's just so many other things too, in terms of just thinking about how something is getting paid for. And then you have to think about, what did they pay for this? And how are they able to pay for that?
Mhm.
But like these businesses don't do things that don't make money. And so if they're doing all of these things, it's because they're all making money, bro. Like if new businesses are popping up, because for right
Facts.
now they're making money, right? And I talked about the story a lot that I heard the guy like screaming in the airport about how much money that he makes. I talked about that too. And he worked for one of the big ones. I was just like, okay, this is going to continue to get worse.
Yeah. You put it out well. It's like when you see like this new thing where it's like all the startups are like trying to go and tackle this thing, which I keep seeing. It's like all these new betting platforms, right, are popping up left and right. It's like, oh, we're using this tech to like make it better and blah, blah, blah. And it's like there was that one a few months ago that was like, oh, we're turning your like spending into gambling. Like you might pay for it, you might not.
And didn't someone reach out to you too, where they top up your bets or something like that to be investing or something like that?
There was a guy who did. He added me on LinkedIn. He's got like a yeah, basically like it tries to invest every time you bet at least.
Yeah,
So it's like at least every time you bet, it goes into an investment account as well.
Like a little bit or something.
The logic behind that was interesting because it's like I don't even remember. It was interesting.
That's a really good one by Brandon there. Gambling is getting so normalized that Pete Rose will probably end up in the Hall of Fame soon. Yeah, so he's like one of the best baseball players of all time, but he gambled on games. And so he got like that cloud over his head for such a long period of time, but it's like he was just early. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't even be that big of a deal. Obviously it would be, like people still get in trouble for that, but it's happening so much more frequently than we're aware of. Like with these players getting involved, it has to be.
But yeah, the one thing that I did learn in the class was like, so there's two different types of loans that they have here. I mean, and I'm sure this is way basically said for me to understand it, but like you've got empréstimos, which is like an actual loan from the bank. And like people can get that and then they might find ways to gamble that away. But then you have what's called agiota, which is like in the streets, people are giving out loans. And then you end up in a situation where if you don't pay them back, just like a loan shark, right? But it's just so much more common and normal because it's like they can charge you users rates. There's like very strict laws around usury that set the cap at how much you can charge people, but these people will charge whatever. And if you don't pay them back, they're coming to your crib. They're talking about your kids, And that's just like a very big problem here when it comes to the gambling. And so, yeah, that's another piece of it. Is like this stuff does actually affect real people. It does create real issues. And then it gets outside of the hands of what the law can even handle. But it also starts with something that's super addictive and that's being advertised to children at this point.
Well, addicts become different people when they're addicted to things, right? Like they're unrecognizable before they had the addiction and after. It's like you're dealing with a different individual. And so there's a lot of people out there that are either addicted to their phone and the negativity of social media, or the thrill, or what was once the thrill of the gambling thing, which is obviously why we built No Dice. But yeah, unfortunately, we'll be talking about this a lot. But what do you got next?
Yeah, man. The next piece I've got, I actually found this morning. I thought this was hilarious. It was actually wild. So the Rubios, unfiltered. So Marco Rubio and his wife were on with Katie Miller. And Katie Miller has been having podcasts with like pretty popular, pretty culturally relevant people. And the idea is to like give them a space to be people, like normal people, right? And so Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his wife, Jeanette, were sharing personal stories about their marriage, family life, and daily routines in Washington. And now the first thing I did was I went to the comments, right? Because I saw a clip from this that was about him talking about like sports. I guess I'll play that clip real quick. Let me find the clip.
His podcasting career or whatever?
That piece too, I ended up seeing that when I watched it live, but this one was more about what he would do, like what's his best day ever, basically. Let me find this one real quick. Yeah, okay.
You said to Laura Trump, if you had a day off, that you would watch football all day.
I answered the question completely wrong.
Why?
Well, first of all, the right answer is I would spend it with my wife going.
Oh yeah, okay. So what a beautiful answer.
But the true answer is, and this is why I messed up that answer. Okay, because here's the thing: the day would actually start much earlier. The greatest show on television today in America is College Game Day. Great show. Starts around 10 or 11, and then the noon game, and then there's a 3:30 game, and then there's a. So I messed, and the idea, like, this is a crazy weekend. It would never happen. So I'm just putting this out there. Okay. But you could start at 10 a.m. on Saturday. You know, run the whole college football day, sleep for a few hours, then you wake up and then you're into NFL game day. Then you got the 1 o'clock game, the 4 o'clock game, the NBC game that night. That is an incredible weekend, in my opinion, in my view. Obviously, I don't believe that will ever
one of the boys, man.
achieve this. Certainly not in the next 2.5 years or what have you. But
achieve this? That's crazy. They're idolizing consumption.
See, now that's the piece of it, right? There was somebody who commented that they were like, "Oh, what good goy propaganda," whatever it was.
Totally. Yeah, and it's a big thing, right? And I used to watch a lot more football than I do now. During the season, like, I'll only watch the Jaguars games because it is a lot of time, right? You give two days of your life for a lot of people who watch football all Saturday, all Sunday, and then the ads are just like the thing, right? That's why they want you there. They can communicate at mass. But you got comments?
Yeah. So the thing that made me say we got to talk about this on the show, because I ended up watching some of this too. But when I first got there, I went straight to the comments because I saw that comment and I was like, let's see what people are saying about this, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just read them out. I love Marco and his sense of humor. So refreshing to see an interview who isn't hostile and allows the truth to flow. Big Marco is ready to lead. Marco and Jeanette Rubio are a class act. And then I would love Marco as our next president. And I'm like, yo. In real life, nobody likes this dude, first off. So, like, where is this coming from? But to see that, I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is looking like
bots.
You know, some political activity at the very minimum. Because I know for a fact that, let me just say it this way, half the country, right, literally hates this guy. Mm-hmm. So to see like all these people in the comments, and this the top liked comments, only comments that were positive. I cannot find one negative comment. And then there was something else that happened throughout the episode that I was like, I got to see if someone's talking about this, because both of them, they're talking about their kids, and they keep saying my kid. My kids, both of them would individually say this. My kid does this. My kid does this. And it's like, yo, do y'all not have the same kids? Like that's super weird. And so I was like, did someone comment on this or what? And one person commented on it, has like 4 likes. I'm like, bro, like that has to be something that people picked up on, and that's weird about this conversation, bro.
Yeah, it's all the way around. I couldn't watch it all. But I love, because I always do sentiment analysis whenever I see pieces of content. And I've been doing this for a long enough period of time where you can smell bots a mile away, and this reeks. And what you can do, it's cool on the YouTube mobile app, is that like you can very quickly click the person who commented, and then you can see all their recent comments on this channel, and it just makes it even more clear that this is horseshit. But yeah, it's always interesting to see. The problem is that like social proof is such a powerful thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And because our biggest fear is isolation from the herd. So you don't want to go against it. So like this stuff can be powerful, and we've experienced it too. Like I posted some things in about Canada, and instantly got like overwhelming amount of hate comments. Mm-hmm. And yes, my shit switched over. Sorry. And I was like, it was so inauthentic. And it's like, who would be paying for this other than like people in power? Like it wouldn't even make sense. And because they do that, because they've trained everyone else to jump on, right? So all they need is like they're putting kindling there, right? And then they've already trained each person to be the spark. Right. So that's why, like, if you talk about any certain things, you'll instantly get hate, because all they have to do is start the conversation like, okay, cool, other people hate this. These people are like me. I hate too. And then we tear each other down. It's so freaking crazy. And I still have that initial hate comment we got. Remember when the guy was like roasting our show? When we like really pop off, I want to throw it up on there and just be like, hey man, come on the show. We'd love to talk.
Let's talk about it, man. Yeah, no, I remember one of those times when we put out, it was on TikTok too, which also helped me to like see how these platforms are working a little bit, because I was very new to TikTok at that time. but it was like as soon as you posted it,
Instant.
like instant comments. So like there's algorithmic like hate or whatever, that's bots that are going towards certain types of content to leave those comments there first.
Yes. Because they've been training everyone to become this bot that we're referring, right? Where I come to social media to hate on this. There are millions of people that do that without even like consciously clocking that that's what they're doing.
Totally.
It's insane, the level of like cognitive dissonance on social media apps. It's so crazy. And then you read their comments and it's just like, oh, you're so predictable. like it's just crazy. But yeah, I think that I think the level of social media understanding will rise because the people are feeling how messed up things are. And I'm hopeful that like hygiene will set in terms of like what these tools are and can be if you use them the right way.
Most definitely, man. You've definitely got my radar up. I've had you send me stuff like that often where it's like, look at the comment section, look at the comment section. And now I'm like a little bit more looking at these things, especially for this one. It was just like, all right,
obvious. I go there right away because you can get so much more about, because also you can read their mind by saying what's worth throwing bots at. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's like I had more conviction in me being close to the target here than I ever have before when they sent that at me. You know what I mean? I'm like, why would you care if this tiny dude in Canada who has like no power, no money, no nothing, but you care enough about like shitting on him? Like why is that so important? You know what I mean?
Love that. Great point. Let's see though. And by the way, when I watch this interview, I will admit I came to like this guy, to like listening to him.
Interesting.
At least.
What?
Yeah, I was
what about it?
It just, to me, he just felt like he did a good job of making himself feel relatable.
Okay.
Like I was like,
that's his job.
He feels like
right?
a normal dude. Yeah.
You think he'll be the candidate out of the Republican Party?
It's crazy because before watching that, I was like,
no shot.
Who would ever, do that? Why would he do that? But if he can keep that up,
well, the comments loved him, man.
Yeah, I mean, I drew the line once nobody talked about the
kid thing.
Him, yeah, because I'm like, dude, that's hecka weird. Like, I don't have kids, but I would not be like that. I'd be like, my kid, like, but, what?
Especially another like good social media hygiene thing is that if you're watching something and you know that you almost wanted to comment something, but that's not part of your normal behavior on social media. If something has that many views, someone would have commented it.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people who like weren't the commenter would go looking for that comment that they would have left, and then they upvote it. So like there's so many red flags when you learn how these things function.
The fact that they had 5, I was the 5th liker of that. I'm like, bro, like, no, like,
no
that's
shot.
weird, bro.
Yeah, 100%. Any parent watching that would be like, what the fuck? Yeah, you know what I mean? That was fascinating, and I love that shit. And I also think that it's really, really funny because knowledge is the ultimate power, right? Because when you become aware of the games that are being played, the effectiveness just diminishes so dramatically. But it's just getting to enough people for them to grasp these concepts, which obviously is why we do the show. One of the many reasons.
Yep. Let me see this next piece. It's actually something that CoffeeZilla covered, but this data that came out about Gen Z shifting cash to sports bets. Eric Balkunis, senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg, always putting out some heat. Gen Z is moving more money from stocks to sports betting and wealth plans. 52% of them have redirected investment funds to sports betting, and a quarter of them treat sports betting as a deliberate part of their long-term financial plan, according to that survey from Veteran. So yeah.
I gotta bounce back in 1 sec.
Okay, word. Did I send this to you? I didn't even mean to. Maybe I did. So yeah, this piece here.
Man, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I jumped right in. On that last piece you just showed, if the problem is with where we're at is that if you actually do the math, like doing the conventional ways that people already have wealth and how they're deploying it to build even more, like if you don't have a large nest egg and things are continuing to go the way that they're going, like it's almost impossible to like for it to make sense. You know what I mean? Like in traditional investing, like it's getting harder and harder for these kids to justify. So I get why they go for the alternative, but they're just nuking themselves by doing that. So I think the education piece there is the bigger thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it leads right into what we're about to talk about.
Cool.
And great find, Sharp. I don't think that I sent this to you. I think you found this. So this is awesome. I'm going to react to this very soon. So a teacher is tearing up over illiterate seniors. So a teacher in Houston, in the United States, Darius Williams, cried on day 2 after seniors couldn't read 2 paragraphs. Students at Wheatley High School failed to fill 4 words in a mostly complete sentence, and the viral classroom video highlights severe literacy gaps among high school seniors. So let's double tap on this.
These kids are leaving high school and going to college, and they couldn't fill in 4 words. 4 words. I literally broke down in the middle of class. This is only day 2. And I have seniors who simply cannot read and seniors who cannot write. They can reason. They have the ability to defend their reasoning if it's talking to their homeboy, but applying that to a written text, 2 paragraphs, and they couldn't do it. Our young black men, our young brown men, our young black girls, and our young brown girls.
Thoughts, Keith?
Well, I mean, I just started to look at this because I was like, I know this is a big problem. You can see it. If you go anywhere near an American high school, you can kind of see it. And I was like, is it getting worse? And I found data that told me that it actually is, which is crazy to think about. But
Well, if you go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, if you think about where you do that kind of extended, prolonged critical thinking or writing, like, there's not that many places where you're forced to do that in the real world. You good? You lose your camera, but it's because I saw a comment in the chat, which is interesting too, saying how they read their phones every day. Yeah, but even when you communicate via the phones, it's rarely a extended, cohesive transfer of thought. It's usually like bullet points. So, yeah, no, it's very interesting. You're back. You're muted. You're muted. I was like, I think you're talking to me, but I was like, are you on a call?
I was going in.
Okay, proceed.
Well, so in the piece that I'm making as a reaction to this video, I'm like kids are learning to tap and scroll, bro. They're learning that behavior, not how to write and reason fully, truly, right? And so it's tough because, yeah, I don't think that it's the same thing at all. And it's just like, oh man, you know, in some ways, I obviously want to think, okay, but like, do you have to have this? But the problem is that writing does actually force the reasoning, and she does force the thinking. And so if it's not happening, then it ain't happening. Cliff Roach put out a really good piece on his story the other day because he went to go and vote on something. And friend of the pod, everybody, former financial advisor, doing some cool stuff in Detroit. And he was like, yo, I just went to go vote, and like I had to read the thing that I was voting on like 3 times. And I'm not dumb. So I know for a fact that people are coming in here and voting on this stuff and they have no idea what is going on. And he was like, and in a lot of ways, I'm pretty sure that it's written like that on purpose. Right. And so I just wanted to tap on that because like it does affect even your local politics when people don't know how to read, you know.
That's been going on forever, right? And as we've developed more understanding and had more skills, they just change like where things go, right? Like so much amazing information is hidden within books because they know you won't read it. Like they don't really care because they're like, you won't read it and you won't stick with it long enough to actually comprehend what's here. We talked about that in terms of different university sectors too, right? Where there's so much jargon where the concept really isn't that complicated, but if you don't have the required terminology, you can't grasp what's going on. It's pretty crazy. Like the power of words is insane.
Right on, dude. To give some of the data on this literacy problem. So in 2017 in the United States, there was a study from the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics that showed that 19% of U.S. adults, which is around 1 in 5, right, ranked at the lowest literacy proficiency levels. That was in 2017.
That's crazy.
In 2023, that figure has risen to 28%. More than 1 in 4. So people are getting less literate over time. And my tie-in is that it's no denying that this thing right here is playing a massive role in why that's happening.
Yeah, that's why I think short form content is so detrimental, because it's eroding your ability to think. It's handing you an opinion. It's hijacking your emotional state. Like, I really don't like short form content, which is why I try to limit how much that I spend on there any day. But it's so destructive to everything because it just makes you so controllable.
100%, man. And like, I'm excited to look more into the literature and the research that's been done around all this, because I mean, there's a few pretty key things that I've been able to take away so far. And like, one of them is that it matters at what age you're letting your kids do this stuff. That's one major thing.
Yeah, the iPad shit was scary when the kids started getting those. I used to work at a retail store, and I saw that becoming a very common thing, and I was just like, oh, this is really, really bad.
Want to give a huge shout out to Meme Call 221 for the super chat. Appreciate that.
Appreciate you, Meme Call. Was there a message there too?
Autocorrect will make you stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because all these tools are just that, but it's so funny that when things becomes like, I think people confuse what it is they're often doing, right? Like, because when you can get the answer to anything, it's so weird that people don't go seek it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was with my little sister all the time. She'd say something, and I'm just like, you live in the age of the internet. Like, instead of just like saying the thing, why didn't you Google it first? You know what I mean? Or like look it up first. It's crazy how that's just not really a thing. And I think it's because we didn't do a good enough job educating people on like what is important, or I guess the values are not really there.
Yeah, man, that's right on. So the three things that I've taken away from the research that I've been doing around this, how phones and social media are affecting education. The first thing is, what age are they using it at? The younger that they start using it, the worse the outcomes are for education. The next thing was how long people are spending right on these applications. These applications like TikTok, Instagram are legitimately leading to you having a shorter attention span. Like, that's on record at this point.
Totally.
And then the third thing that I've also been seeing is that it's not just how long you're spending, it's what are you actually doing while you're there.
Meaning what?
Meaning, if you're on, basically all screen time is not equal time. Your time that you're spending on TikTok, scrolling like that, is way worse than the time that you're spending on YouTube, hanging out and actually listening to something, right? Facebook and Instagram, there was a study that said that people that were using these platforms more than others, basically their attention spans shortened. They were more addicted to it. And what was the other piece? I'm kind of forgetting the last piece of the takeaway from that study. But essentially, the takeaway is, it's not just how long, it's what's your relationship with the platform and what are you actually doing when you're on it.
Totally. And I think because a lot of the people that even say they have YouTube addictions, it's usually because they're watching certain types of videos where you do get like those dopamine spikes, right? Like I personally, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I spend a ton of time on YouTube every single day, whether it's I'm actually watching it or listening to it in the background, but I'm listening to things that are like 1 hour and a half plus every time, right? So it's like, in my opinion, I think that's actual opportunity for knowledge acquisition because of also the things that I'm watching. So it is totally dependent on what you're doing. It's like food, man, right? It's like, do you get fat eating vegetables, like unlimited vegetables? Like, can you get fat? Like, it's pretty hard to do. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. 100%, man. And then what was the other piece I was going to touch on? Oh, and another part of the reason why these platforms are actually leading to worse educational outcomes, according to research, is that it's not only that these things are making your brain worse, but you also got to think about it. You're replacing that time that you would have spent doing things that would lead to better educational outcomes.
Yeah.
Like reading.
Totally.
So,
yeah, it's motivational videos. Yeah, a lot of people do that too, where they just like consistently watch motivational videos. It's like, you've been motivated for the last 5 years, mate. Go do something. But yeah, so it's just about being honest with yourself and also being aware of how the things you're using are using you. And I'm hopeful that that becomes more of a thing. Someone also mentioned Toy Story 5. That's kind of like the core point of the show. I think like the bad thing is the iPad or whatever. So I'm very curious to see that. I'll probably watch that. I didn't see 4, so maybe I'll have to watch 4 to know what's going on, but we'll see. I loved Toy Stories as a kid. I loved Buzz Lightyear.
I don't think I've ever watched any of them like fully.
No way. I guess maybe you're a little bit younger. You missed it, I guess. Just
Yeah, exactly. Because when I was in like elementary, it would be on something in the background or something, but like I never fully watched that joint.
Yeah, those were sweet back in the day for sure.
Let me this next piece here. Bill Ackman, he's a big investor. Pershing Square, I believe, is the company. And he decided to quote New York Post's tweet about Anthony Fauci in his 2021 text, noting possible miscarriage risks from vaccine fever. So Fauci privately flagged the first trimester risks while publicly calling vaccines safe for pregnant women. And Ackman and his wife, Neri, suffered 7 miscarriages during the 2020 crisis while seeking a second child. And so Bill Ackman made this post saying that WTF was Fauci thinking when, we were trying to have children. And people roasted him in the comments, folks. Bill Ackman has tastes for making takes at the wrong time, wrong place. So
it's so consistent. It almost seems like strategic.
It really does. He's basically like Chamath before Chamath, like this billionaire guy that no one likes, and he loves to make it even more so. Kyle said, "Your wife was in her mid-40s, and you're trying to blame Fauci?" John Chungus V said, 54-year-old man and his 44-year-old wife struggle with reproductive issues because of evil Tony Fauci and his nasty vaccine.
Funny, man.
Tony Montana with the dig, saying, "You are one of the most vocal voices about shutting down the economy. You had a huge short in the market and made billions. WTF are you even talking about?" So anyways, nobody was really trying to hear any of that from him, but definitely a tough situation though, regardless. I hate to see that for anybody. But next piece, I thought this was hilarious. We had a guy on Tuesday talking about flock cameras and things of that nature, and how they can help make the world a better place, eradicating crime and so on. Apparently, there are no flock cameras on the west side, on the Upper West Side of New York. This map shows that, and it's starting to cause a little bit of a conversation. St. Bridget of Sweden, and by the way, you can check this data. I believe this is actually completely how it is. There's literally no flock cameras on the Upper West Side. And so for anyone who's not familiar, the Upper West Side of New York City is like the richest part. It's like where all the wealthiest people are living at. And there just happen to be no flock cameras there. So some people are like, oh, it's because there's no crime there. And we'll come to that in a second. But this guy says, that's clearly because politicians are aware that Roman Catholics dominate the Upper West Side. So they want to ensure their sacred privacy is protected. Oh, wait, never mind. Let's see. Jackie said, I want to go neighborhood by neighborhood in Brooklyn. I have some theories. I won't read that one, but that one's interesting. Yeah, so I saw one guy say, basically, like, that's because there's no crime there. And then somebody snapped back and with a really good comment. It was like, I'd argue that's where all the real crime is actually happening, which is a very interesting thought, right? You got all the guys from the financial district coming back home every day, right? Going right up to the Upper West Side where the real deals are going down.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Any theories or thoughts on how there would be 0 flock cameras in the Upper West Side of Manhattan?
I'm sure that's not too difficult to deduct.
Pretty wild to think. Maybe there's something else to it. I don't know. You guys let me know. Apparently, Duolingo saves a kid's 300-day streak. So a mom asked Duolingo to restore her 10-year-old son's 300-day streak after his hospital stay. The boy was hospitalized, missed lessons, and returned home heartbroken over the loss. Duolingo quickly replied, offering to reinstate the streak once given his username. And this wholesome exchange goes massively viral with over 17 million views. Oh,
That's good. I feel like the streak thing is something actually that reminded me of something that we got to add to one of my apps too.
You gotta have that level of buy-in, you know. But no, that's world healing kind of moment. It feels like. Let's see, what's this one? Somebody said, "Hey Duolingo, I was hungover last Sunday and lost my 4-day streak. Please help." They said, "Get off my page." That's awesome. All right, I think that's all I've got for that piece. Now we've got some pure funny stuff to react to today. Yep. So for the pure funnies, I think I had a couple that I saw, and let's see what the guys added to the list. So interesting. There's no way. That's crazy. Yankee Draft said, "Bro, I just realized the months in English are in alphabetical order." No. That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's not the case.
What they say, D kind of gives it away.
Yeah. But that was pretty funny. Good stuff. Linked out. Let's see what this one is. All right. Startup idea. Linked out. A place where employees expose the real reasons they left the toxic companies that they left.
Damn.
That's dangerous. I mean, there technically is one of those types of things, right? It's like it's kind of different, I guess, because you have to be at the company, but then you can leak stuff. You have to like verify you work at the company, and then you can leak stuff. I forgot what it's called.
Whistleblower?
Maybe that's it.
I have this one girl that I know is like was trying to like whistleblow on a company that she worked at, man, and it was just like it was wild. It was all publicly on LinkedIn. It was crazy. Every time I go on LinkedIn, she'd be like publicly tagging the person that she was like trying to expose. I'm like, I don't know if this is the way to do this. I was like, your other future employers can see this too.
That's a tough path.
Yeah, it's wild, man. But good luck to her. What else you got? Is that all the memes?
No, a couple more. This guy, Nat Milichik, said, "Wow, this new Claude text watermarking is wild." Oh, I see.
On the whole Claude watermarking thing, Charles made a great video.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't get to watch it. Cool. I'll make sure I watch it.
Man, if sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say if he just changes the titles on these rants that he's doing about these AI things, he could blow up, man. He's just not using the words that the everyday person who already hates AI would click.
Super fair.
But go ahead.
So this one here is Sam Altman, right? You can see Sam Altman sucks on the left side of the screen.
That's freaking awesome.
That's pretty good there. I did see this one too. Let's see. So claims that this lady has a button fitted on her belly so that when she gets the nod that Trump is asleep, she taps it and it wakes him up. They're calling her the Zapper. No idea if it's true, but it appears to line up. So pay close attention here.
Where we funded a dozen and more major research teams to answer the question of what is
whoa.
It's a complicated biology.
So apparently she responded to this and said, "I'm just pregnant, you weirdos."
The timing is pretty wild, though.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hadn't seen her response until just now because I did see that video floating around. But that's mad funny that she clapped back at the folks. That has 16 million views. Let's see here. A couple more. Can we consider that we have reached the end of human evolution? Oh, she's got glasses on to look at a solar eclipse. Yeah, because there's a solar eclipse going on in Europe. And she's got binoculars. And she's got her phone and she's trying to, I'm not sure what she's trying to do.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, I don't even actually know what's going on there, but that went viral. I guess she's trying to do too much here.
She's doing the most.
Yeah.
But I see the chat saying people hate AI and crypto. I think they hate AI a lot more than they hate crypto. And I also think a lot of the spokespeople for crypto will be really well liked soon. And so I think that whole view of what it is can change pretty dramatically.
Fair enough, dude. This next one. This is Michael Saylor diluting MicroStrategy by raising money from the public in order to buy Bitcoin and then selling that Bitcoin to buy back the Stretch, which is the dividend-paying equity that he has, so that then he can buy back MSTR so he can sell more MicroStrategy to buy Stretch so that he can buy Bitcoin. Basically pointing out the Ponzi-nomics of MicroStrategy and showing this guy connecting all of these pots.
Nope. And then this one has to fill a little bit more. But you can see we got 3 going this way.
Yeah.
I'll keep the water going into here. And then I'm going to siphon this last one and get a perpetual flow of water.
Perpetual motion is not a thing, Ryan.
I won't fill this one. This is completely impossible.
Impossible, yes.
This is physically impossible. This is not a thing that can happen.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty funny.
Super good.
So that's that. That also is an interesting concept too. I've never actually thought about that before. So I wonder, wow, that's so cool.
What?
I'm just thinking about like what he was actually doing. Like I feel like that's kind of, there's something to that, right? No.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's it for that. I think it's time to talk some community.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
So we had a awesome conversation last episode. It was also episode 100, by the way. We totally forgot to acknowledge that.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about it. We're so locked in.
But that was our 100th episode, folks. So for anyone who's been around for all of this, wow, we appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
What an incredible run. It was a perfect 100th episode. We went with a bang. We had Mr. Gutierrez, Robert, talking with us about tech and flock cameras and why surveillance is a good thing for humanity. And comments, we're loving it. We can see we got 46 comments here. Had people reach out to me personally as well about this episode, talking about this guy's outtake. So let's read some of the comments. M Green 260. He said, nah, I know people already advertise and market things to make you buy stuff and can shape your mind to see something a certain way. But to hear somebody say it and say they are using AI to refine it and trigger things in the brain just sounds predatory. And I know it's already a predatory market, but just sounds crazy hearing it out loud. 6 upvotes on that one.
Yeah, I went and looked at the bio of his startup, and like how he describes the startup is pretty dystopian too. So, obviously that's what he's going for.
Fascinating. So the next one here, Michelle Grace Hunter, she said, I was originally stuck on his original motivation for this was false accusations. Ooh-wee. And then the reasoning that average people, in quotes, can just leave was probably one of the most incoherent thought processes I've heard in my life. Then he gets the punishment for people being against this. Also places exist outside of America for F's sake. I absolutely don't want any people like this having any say over what happens to me or my loved ones. None of this is rooted in reality of what it means to be human. Great questions / pushback, Ben and Keith. Edit, please take this to another planet. I beg you. Yeah, super fair here. I'm trying to remember because I do remember him saying towards the very beginning, it was something about like false accusations or da-da-da. Yeah, like, yeah, that is somewhat contradictory to think about because, I mean, we also saw, it was kind of ironic because later in the episode, I think we showed the thing of the flock camera pulling people over and it was like the wrong guy or it hadn't been like cleared from the system. So yeah, that's a good point. And then, yeah, average people stuff is also super weird. And then, yeah, so I totally hear it. And take it to another planet, super fascinating thought to me. I was like, okay, so I guess like if you really care so much about progress that you'll take it outside of the planet to do it still, then like, I guess go for it. Like, but yeah, I don't know.
We shall see how it all goes.
Lawrence Israel said, great interview and very nice guy. But it felt like Batman could walk in and put the nice guy in the ceiling fan at any moment. Darren Bailey said the entire argument with flock camera is that cities are installing without their citizens voting on them. My tax dollars shouldn't be used to fund a private company to violate my individual rights. No one voted that private company into office. Why is the data privatized? John Solo said, no, just know you lost me on this one. Darren Bailey said, I don't want to be controlled and no one should want to be either. And then Imani Davies said, bro called Elon Musk a god. Can't make this up, gang. So yeah, people not vibing it at all.
Way she goes.
So I'm trying to see if we have anything supporting him.
No, we don't have enough views for that.
You're gonna find more of the masses for that one. Yeah, so appreciate you guys for showing up and leaving your thoughts in the comment section. We always love it. Other than that, I think I'm in the middle of No Dice 45.
Me too.
Which is a challenge that is built to help you get back control of your life, to help you replace habits that you don't like with ones that you do. And I'm on day 6. Where you at, Ben?
12. I'll put my challenges in real time.
Let's see it.
Super cool. I have to do no doom scrolling, keeping the apps blocked that I blocked, the time-wasting apps. A 10-minute breathwork session. I got to say hello to 5 strangers, exercise, and read 10 pages. I'm going to, what am I going to read today? I'll decide and let you know. What do you got?
Let me know. And also let us know in the Discord, in the private Discord, what you're cooking up on for your reads.
I will.
I've got to go live here with you. Oh, darn, bro. I got 5 compliments again that I got to give. 5 compliments, breath work, exercise, no gambling, and watch 30 minutes of something cool. It's going to educate me. So, yep, those are my challenges for the day. I ran into some people that were speaking English yesterday, and I sat down and chatted with them for a second, and that was a lot of fun. 3 of them were Dutch. One was from Sweden, another from Germany, and a dude from Brazil actually was there, and I was talking to this dude about like the Belgium. Oh wait, I totally got that wrong. One of the girls was Dutch, and two of the guys were from Belgium.
Okay.
I got that mixed up because they speak Dutch. But dude was talking about Belgian culture, and I was flabbergasted by this. Like, I've heard some of it. Like, they have 6 governments, right? And I've heard about that before because like they're always locked. Like they're basically always shut down. Like they every year or so or whatever, there's like a massive shutdown that happens because you have 6 governments. Like, how are you supposed to possibly come to the agreements upon anything?
What's the thought process there for having that many governments?
It comes down to the fact that they just all hate each other. Like they just have these massive cultural issues where they don't get along at all. And it was very clear speaking to this guy as to why. Like, I'm like, yo, this dude is crazy, bro.
Wow.
Like, it was so interesting to see a European feel like and be super educated and whatnot. And I'm not saying that this is like that he sounded dumb. What I'm trying to illustrate is this: like in the United States, you'll hear like the dude who has 0 education, like talking so much smack about people, right? Who are like poor too, like, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. But like this dude's clearly like very well educated, college educated, and he's like, the South of Belgium are a bunch of idiots. They're so dumb. They're a welfare state. The only reason that we have them is because the only reason they're even surviving is because all the work that we do. And I was just like, this is fascinating because he clearly like, I mean, he didn't provide a whole lot of data backing up his thoughts, but it was just clear that this was normal though. Like for him to speak like this was totally fine.
No big deal.
And it was so fascinating. Like there's laws in certain parts of the country, mind you, like it's one country. There's the north side that's Flemish. There's the south. Wait, I think I said that right. The north is Flemish, and they're basically like they're Dutch speaking and so on. And then the south is more French-ish, and they speak French. And there's parts of Belgium where you can't speak French if you're working for the government, especially like if you're like a train operator. If you speak French over the thing, you'll get fined, and like you could lose your job for speaking French.
Wow.
And it's like this whole thing where they're like trying to keep the language from like flushing out the Flemish or whatever. And I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. So I'm just talking about this because this is one of the benefits that comes from doing the challenges of No Dice 45 is you end up striking up conversations with people and like learning these types of interesting things.
And people are fascinating, man. And they do want to share these stories with people. They just don't get many opportunities because people don't talk that much.
100%. This dude's passion. And like, you could tell he would never hurt anyone or anything like that. But this dude's passion for like hating the French speaking people in his country was wild to me. I'm like,
crazy.
yo, dude, like,
well, I can only speak to like in Canada, a lot of the French people suck too. So like I'm not saying like that stuff kind of does happen. So maybe it's a French thing. I don't know. But it's not all of them, obviously, but like it's a thing here too. Like when you go to Quebec, you're like expecting to kind of be shit on a bit.
It was so fascinating because so also I'm not mentioning the dude's like darker skinned, right? So like he's Cuban actually, technically. He told me he's Cuban. And like so there was that piece too. I'm like, oof, it's crazy to see someone like that talking like that. And then he was like, so we call them dumb in the South and they call us arrogant, basically. And so I'm like, bro, it sounds like you're like, so on that French argument, it sounds like you're like them then. It sounds like you're more like the French-ish types of people talking like this, bro. But I have no idea about the dynamics of that country, but that certainly made me interested in hearing more.
Fascinating. If you get any updates on that, let me know.
Yeah, man, I'll have to meet up with this guy. He was super just vocal about this. And I was like, yo, dude, can I put some of this on camera? And then my camera was dead, bro. I was so mad about that. I was like, darn, I want to catch some of this.
That's awesome. Just says, I love Montreal. Yeah, I wouldn't say I love it or I don't like it. I've only been there twice, so I can't have that much of an opinion on it. But I definitely did run into some trolly French people. But that's all from me. Keith, you have anything else?
No, I think that's about it. Definitely make sure to join the Discord, folks. There's only a month that we're allowing people. Well, it's less than a month now. You got a couple of weeks left to get in there and prove that you're one of the OGs. Okay, you get a role when you join now, and only the OGs will be in there, guys. This is going to be crazy in like 5 years, 10 years. Think about that. 5 years from now, you get to be an OG of the show. Like, that's super, super dope. And we appreciate you guys, being with us. So
Totally.
pull
Yeah, so you
up.
can get the exclusive frozen cat roll. Did you have anything else to add there, Keith?
No, I think that's about it.
Cool, man. Yeah, so get in there. First month only will you get access to that. So take advantage. And also, it's the cheapest that it'll ever be. Because like we also do want to maintain the value of the Discord too. And so if it does reach a point where there's like too many people, we'll probably start to raise the price to slow it down. But yeah, we're excited to get to know y'all better, get in there. We can all learn from each other. And then also you'll shape the content of the show as well. Yeah, by submitting stories that we could potentially cover, memes, all that good stuff.
Join us. I'm super pumped. I'm actually going to send something in there right after this. Just do a little life update with you guys because that's where we're getting personal. Let's do it.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. Appreciate all of y'all. Let me go through the chat quickly and give some love to the people who are still here, who made it all the way to the end. Where can I see some people here? Can you see names yet?
What a sale. Pullover hoodie. What up?
Pullover hoodie. We got BAPN, Just Usk. We got Noxo. What a sale.
Lee Entertainment.
Lee Entertainment.
Always here.
Yes. SV Thora Sailing. We got Rocky Tukey. Rookie Tukey. What up? We got Soul of Hefe. Appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. Appreciate you. I saw Thomas here earlier too. So if you've seen the replay, what up? Brandon, how are you? Mary, always a treat, always a pleasure. Yeah, we appreciate all y'all making it to the end. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We will see all of you legends on Tuesday. Mark your calendar. We'll be going live at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's all for me, Keith.
I was going to say, if you're new here, because it looks like we probably had some new people, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And even if you aren't new here, make sure you do that because it's very likely that we've seen some subscribers popping off and stuff like that. Make sure you got that subscribe bell on and popping.
Totally. Yeah, and a great free way for you to help us is hitting the like button and then also subscribing, making sure, double checking.
Yeah, and share this. Guys, this was a sick conversation. If you got anybody who's like an XRP doubter or an XRP hater or an XRP lover, share this episode. It helps a ton, and that's the only way that's going to really, really push this thing across the line is when you guys share this episode with people. So
that's it. Well, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Hit your thing.
Make today the best day of your life.
That's it. That's it. Be the light that y'all want to see, and we will see all of you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, guys. Cheers.